Dune 2 talk and a little bit more on Midnight's Edge in the morning. It's Monday. Rise and shine, campers. Greetings and welcome to the one, the only, the original Midnight's Edge in the morning. I'm Tom Connors. With me, as always, is the boss man, Andre.
Greetings, everyone, and hope you're all having a lovely Monday morning, in spite of events happening around the world. So we'll do our best to keep your mind off of it.
Hanging with us this morning is part of our crew. We have Mike, the Mexican Iron Man, here. How you doing?
Really good. I'm on the lunch break from work, and I'm super doing good after the videos you guys dropped since last Thursday. So that's awesome.
Yeah, we've had some really cool ones with the whole Bob Chapek and Disney and Black Widow and Shang-Chi and all of that. For those that haven't seen them, do check that out after the stream. But yeah, someone else that contributed to those is Grip Doctor. How are you?
I am well this morning despite events. I hope everyone else is doing well and staying safe if they can. Looking forward to today's discussions.
Yes, indeed, because today we'll be talking some box office numbers and some hypocrisy and everything that goes with that. We'll be talking some Dune and how the sequel is already, depending on how you choose to look at it, not looking that great. We'll see what else shows up today.
Pirate guy's finally speaking out a little bit.
Yeah, and does he say anything unexpected?
I'll take a look, but we do have some super chats.
Yes, we do. We do have some super chats. The first one today that I can't bring up on screen, but I do have it here, was from M. Bloodseeker, who sent us $10.
Wow.
Thank you so much for that. And he says, I was already going to wait for non-access media reviews before watching. Obviously in reference to Dune. This rumor makes me more comfortable with waiting. And yes, we are going to get more into Dune in a moment here. And then we have our good friend who says, hi, gents. Hello, everyone, with a diamond and a smiley. That is, of course, very much so appreciated. Also, in reference to Dune, that I cannot bring up on screen, but I do have it, at least partially behind the scenes here. Culture Casino says in reference to Zendaya possibly being the real star of Dune Part 2, if made. Are we at all surprised? And then Adam Wofford said, I hope that Chani becomes the main star in Dune 2 isn't true. See if I have the rest here. That would ruin, I think, already an awesome looking movie. If true, I think I will pass on the whole thing altogether. And I believe there may be more people feeling that way, which we're going to get into here. And then, Tom, was there another we could bring up on screen here from Stephen Otten, for instance? Stephen Otten says for $20. Whoa, thank you so much. Hail, Andre, Tom, Mike, Script, Wrenches, and Chat. If I recall correctly, Chani is with Paul every step of the way in the second half. She would be considered a second lead. Let's cool our jets until we see the final product. Wise words indeed. And we are going to get into that because this doesn't necessarily have to be as bad as it can sound on the surface. But we are going to get into that in far more detail. And then we also have Brightest Day, who says, good morning, Midnighters. Well, good morning to you. And speaking of good morning, we also have Willie Woodward here with us. We have Tekkaman Blade. We have Pat S. Darius Münchhausen. Natasha is here representing the Wrenches. Brendan is here. Jesse Miller is here. Hey, Jesse. Cosmic Squirrel is here. D. Bud Martin is here. And I believe we saw some Danes that are not going to relinquish their Danish citizenship just yet. Yeah, awesome. We have because they have to teach the Norwegian, otherwise they're not proper Danes.
Oh.
Yeah, just like we have to teach the Swedes, otherwise we're not proper Norwegians. And the Swedes, they have to look down on both the Swedes and the Danes, otherwise or the Norwegians and the Danes, otherwise they're not proper Swedes. So yeah, that's like the internal teasing within the Nordic countries. And it's so awesome that we have people from all over the world joining us. It's always fun to see where everyone in the chat is representing. So that's awesome. Natasha also points out Norwegian logic, LOL. Yeah, indeed. I mean, you got to laugh. The Sem guy also points out the politics of Scandinavia. Yeah, like actually some people could take a few lessons in that particular regard from there. But with that, I believe we are caught up on super chats. I'm going to do a final check here to see if we missed some, but I think we are all caught up then. No, we are not quite caught up. Darius Münchhausen sent us a popcorn super sticker, so thanks for that. And with that, we are all caught up. So before we begin with Dune, we're going to do one more super chat from Roof Korean the Based. Did you click the button, Tom? And he says, don't want to drag down the mood of the stream. Army Vet 2010 to 2018. Thank you for acknowledging world events. Know nothing about Dune will after this. Yes, indeed. Yeah, because we try to keep a light mood and we try to keep minds away from it. But when we have, let's face it, we have a monumental disaster of epochal dimensions. And this may be, in my honest estimation, one of the single greatest foreign affairs disasters in human history. I don't want to get any more into it, but there's absolutely no positive. There is no good spin on it. Unless, of course, you want China and Russia to gain some allies and stuff, that is awesome. But provided that you are from like a reasonably Western point of view, today is not a good day in any way, shape, or form. So my thoughts out to everyone here who has served, who have lost someone who served, who are injured. Thank you for your service, and I regret it was all for naught. And with that, we're not going to put any further dampening on any things. Instead, we're going to take a look at the box office. Do we have some numbers?
You're asking me, the guy who can't even read?
No, we're asking the one who's good at math.
Well, I sent you guys the link for the weekend. Yeah, let me do it again.
Yeah, send it again. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. Tom, can you bring up the link?
Yeah, one moment. All right, what do we got here? Deadline.
And this is yesterday, so this is before the Sunday numbers, which should be out in the next hour or two.
And there we go. It's on the screen.
Perfect. So, take us through the numbers. I document the super chats because we still have issues here on the.
Okay. Free Guy unleashes 51 million global bow. The Suicide Squad marches to 118 million worldwide. F9 tops 500 million overseas in the international box office. Disney 20th Century Fox's Free Guy led the game at the global turnstiles this session with a 51 million worldwide debut. That includes domestic overperformance of 28.4 million and a 22.5 million start in 41 material markets, okay, at the international box office. The latter in line with pre-weekend expectations. The offshore debut on the Sean Levy directed pick was 9% above Cruella and 18% below Jungle Cruise. In like-for-like markets, this is a solid start for the original piece. This original piece of IP, and particularly as overseas hubs are still struggling with shifting restrictions. There's there's runaway ahead and strong word of mouth that should give Free Guy some legs. Think a potential 4+ international multiple. And then it just gives a bit about the movie. Let's see here. Took number 1 pretty much everywhere. Number 2 in Australia and Mexico.
Its debut date was for Free Guy was only $2 million more domestically than the Suicide Squad.
Mm-hmm. Which there is a $50 million variance in between the cost.
Yeah,
which
at least.
is a big difference, but at the same time, I don't know. Because we've had a lot of this lately with, oh, this is a hit, but that's not. This is a hit, but that's not. But the numbers are so close. It's like, well, which is it? And it's like we talked about with Black Widow, how, they kind of hid behind the Disney Plus numbers, but they could have been really, jumping on the idea that, look, we have the highest grossing opening post-pandemic, and all that kind of stuff. If they'd have rolled that wave and not put it on Disney Plus, Black Widow could have been bigger than F9.
Could have. We'll never know.
No,
I still think that the problem with it is that it's the wrong movie at the wrong time that came when no one cared. I don't know that there was any universe where Black Widow would have been that much a bigger hit than it turned out to be.
I guarantee you, even in a normal world, even with no interest whatsoever, it still would have made $500 million, at least.
Probably. I gotta tell, don't you think? But
Yeah.
What about the impact of like people like me who would plan to see it? We're gonna go see it. I was gonna see it in theaters, and because of the comments she made, I was turned off and I didn't go. I've met or talked to online dozens of people that are like that too. Dozens.
I think the bigger problem is that it was on Disney Plus, and again, I stress this. I think this is the first time Hollywood is really, really, really feeling what piracy can really do. So these last 25 years of them, talking shit and throwing stupid ads in front of DVDs and shit, now they're actually feeling what it really is. So, because Black Widow, as far as I know, is still the most downloaded movie in history, which to me, that says a lot. Because you can sit there and talk about box office all day long, but if that's the most downloaded file or movie in history, I mean, come on. Because we've had a lot of pretty big movies leak online. And for that to be that way, that tells me that it could have done much, much, much better than it did in the box office.
Probably. Yeah, I mean, never underestimate putting a 4K version of the file, which again, I can't stress this enough, is higher quality than a physical normal Blu-ray disc. Well, you put that the same day as to come on theaters, you're going to lose a big deal of the audience to that. Well, especially considering that there are big parts of the world where Disney Plus isn't available, and even if you have it, paying those extra $30, it's going to be a deterrent, particularly for many single individual households.
Now, of course, Free Guy, here's a big difference, obviously, between the budget. The other difference is Free Guy already had some pre-existing deals, so a lot of its budget was probably amortized in that way. So, a lot of this money, this is kind of like almost money in their pocket no matter what, because it's prepaid for. Like it came with the sale, right?
And with the sale from Fox, yeah.
Yeah. And they already have a deal with HBO, so I'm sure they get a nice chunk of change from them and stuff like that. So this movie is going to do fine. I understand where it's going to be a hit, but popularity-wise, I mean, it's not much more popular, doing any better than most of the other films that have come out during the past few months. So that's where I'm just kind of like, how is this any different than anything else? I mean, we saw the same thing with In the Heights, but then nobody said shit about, Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. They're like, oh, it's a decent hit. I'm like, how? It was similarly budgeted. You had a star, Ryan Reynolds, who couldn't even push it any farther than In the Heights was, but yet everybody was making this big deal about it, In the Heights being, what it was. So again, I'm kind of confused here as to where it is that they get this idea that this is some big hit in comparison to everything else this year.
I think where it comes from are a couple of things. Is that I think you've got the Hollywood folks through deadline want to make sure that they're not conceding that there's money to be made in the box office, and ergo, there's money to be made for them, their agents, etc. type of thing. I mean, I could be wrong, but I mean, I think people are holding. There's a lot of camps. Some people think the movie experience is dead, dying, and is never going to come back. Some people think that cinematic experience will never leave. One thing's for sure is that the way movies were done and have been done, where you have these mega theaters and all these seats and 10 different movies playing every hour on the hour, those days are gone and never coming back for sure, I think. So I don't know. Those are my 2 cents.
Yeah, I don't know. Script?
All I can say is that theaters are going to last as long as the countries that don't have the infrastructure for streaming are behind. That's basically it. So there's going to be theatrical releases for quite a while, especially internationally, and especially in rural, and especially for people who live in rural areas. So, yeah, I'm to me, the way this last summer I've been seeing you can bet that your average box office take for your opening night is going to be around $20 million, $25 million. And then from there, It's just going to aggregate to, well, here's the other part. So this is from the Friday numbers. So its weekend is like 50 million. So that means it got everything on Friday, and it got a split between Saturday and Sunday at best as an aggregate. You get 10 million on Saturday.
These numbers are from Sunday morning. So the new numbers from this morning, would that include Sunday, they should be out in the next hour.
So then, if we're lucky, this will end up closing in at a
58 to 68.
Closer to that, maybe. Yeah, on a 58. Yeah, 58 to 68 would probably be right. Yeah, I'm just doing the quick math here.
Right. Now, Script, let me ask you a question. I'm going to build on your comment there where you're talking about the streaming stuff. I used to think, I was of the mind that movie theaters were dead, and almost when the lockdown happened, I was on a bunch of shows that invited me on, and I was talking about, we're never going to recover, but this is as a guy who signed up with HBO Max specifically for the Snyder universe, right? I had problems with the stream, and I had the best internet I could buy locally. But the internet in general in this country sucks compared to a lot of countries, and that may
it really does.
That may be ridiculous to say. I mean, I'm going to give you an example right now. I just watched Cameron on Mandy's show with you, Andre. Did you see how good his internet was versus being in Santa Monica?
Yeah. That's or my internet from my Wi-Fi in Norway. Now,
right, you're not even hardwired in.
I'm on Wi-Fi.
We've never had issues with you, and so the thing is that Script. I think you just hit the nail on of the as you always do, the brilliant head on with the brilliant hammer, which is that theaters can the real threat has to do with the quality of streaming. I mean, I just watched the Suicide Squad. I did see it originally in theaters, as I reported when it came out, but then I saw it a second time at home, and the damn thing was glitchy. I don't know why. I'm hardwired in. Okay, well that TV was on a wireless, but I'm still at supposedly 5G in my house, and it still got a little clickety click. And maybe it's because I was watching it Saturday night and other people were watching it too. Maybe, I don't know.
Here's the thing with 5G. If you're really unlucky, you get all the negatives, but you don't get the positives, but like the higher speed. So. Yeah, it's like
well, here's what's kind of really funny. So there was a small town in Southwest Texas that did an experiment with fiber optic internet, and that experiment was then the model for that was then purchased by one of the service providers in Canada, and they managed to do it nationwide in 5 years. And so Canada's got like some of the best internet in the world in regards to capability, stability, and accessibility for their citizens. Here, theaters have been staying closed longer in the more densely populated areas because streaming is such a reliable alternative.
Oh.
I've never had any issues. Even when I use like my VPN and my US credit card to sign up for like HBO Max or or any of the other services just to see what's going on, I get it perfectly on my end. Never had any issues for it, but that's just because it's still a relatively new system. Like we have a combination of fiber from one service provider, we have a fiber coax mix for another one. We've got massive satellite receiver dishes and relays for Wi-Fi. The infrastructure is remarkably solid because it's basically each one is like privately owned by the service providers, but it's also those companies also pay in with their local provincial governments to build the infrastructure and maintain it as well. So there's like a joint venture thing going here. But it's I'm shocked that it works as good as it should. However, it's also very expensive in Canada. You're looking to have just a bill of like say internet and phone. Your average cost is going to be around $200 a month.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
But the thing is that the reliability, especially as you're in your more like small towns and cities, the reliability is uncompared. But when you're up in the rural areas, a little bit spotty, just because again you're dealing with technically like satellite internet, and so yeah, if there's bad weather conditions, that can screw up the receiving side of things. But outside of that, it's usually pretty good. But it's very expensive.
Huh. Well, I'll know shortly.
Yeah, there's not going to be many people that are still on like your traditional phone line or DSL or any of that stuff like that. Those have all kind of gone out the window. The only ones that are there are people who got that internet in like the late 90s and their grandfathered in because it's like $14 a month for that stuff back then. But to now it's pretty expensive. Yeah, and that's the one thing too. Like you're probably going to see a hit domestic because for the domestic side of things, especially for the box office, that includes Mexico and Canada. With the U.S. numbers, and you're going to see a dip on that opening weekend because of the stream, especially for day and date movies because of streaming. So yeah, there's not much you can say about that, and
I think
the other part too is that ours is unlimited bandwidth. Is for most cases we have a regulation saying you can't charge us for more bandwidth because a independent council realized that bandwidth is not actually tangible and doesn't actually cause more stress with regards to servers and stuff as what most service providers were claiming. So
you guys have you don't get metered at all.
No, and we can't get they used to have throttling, but they also got rid of that as well because again it was unjustified practice.
Well,
it was determined unjustified practice.
All those nasty things they say about Canada, God bless you guys. Look at that.
I call it a conflated advertising. It's like, yeah, they say that we're this type of country, but it's like, well, not really. I mean, we want to be, or at least some of the politicians want us to be, but when you actually get down to the nitty gritty, it's really not. But it's not perfect by any means, of course.
Yeah. No, I mean, in here, like where I live, there's so many rural areas where you literally reach the end of the internet at some points. Like where my folks used to live, they were like the last house next to the last house on the line for that could get the local city's internet when they lived outside of town, which they were even lucky to be able to do that because otherwise they moved like a little bit farther over, they would have had to get it like a satellite or whatever, and that would have been their only choice.
So if you're the end of the line.
Yeah, if you're in farm country, streaming is going to be difficult, but normal internet stuff is going to be okay. But yeah, you're not wrong. Like Corey Leader, yeah, I've seen some issues where when they just started the program, people would be getting like a remote flash receiver for their computer or their Xbox or smart TV, and this was before the throttling and the bandwidth allocation, and people would end up spending like $500-600 a month or up to $1,000 a month because they would always stream through it, and it's really it was really expensive. But it's kind of crazy. What was it? Bell Canada spent at least $20 million just on the customer service side of things for their internet, and then another 20 for the infrastructure, and then some more on top of that. They just keep on building it up and up and up because they want to advertise it. And at the same time, that company is also owned by the same, like quote unquote, shadow parent company of AT&T and all those other service providers. So you guys should be getting it, but I don't know why. What seems to be obstructing them from doing such a thing? unless
Yeah,
there's like
well,
all these like environmental impact cases that are being
Well,
brought up. By,
like with most things in the U.S., morons and lack of intelligence and lack of conviction.
oh yeah, many in the chat are sharing their stories as well. Michael
yeah,
Millard says that in South Africa we had dial-up until 2010, and we
Oh,
also got a standing invitation from that was the last thing I saw here from Paul Klubanu, who says, "Come to Romania. We have gigabyte internet for only $10."
whoa!
that's really
So
good.
yeah. Yeah, our good friend Gary J. Tunnicliffe, he has like his secondary home in Romania and his studio there, and he's never been a problem to stream with.
I keep
I would
getting
say.
told that's the place the Mexican airman needs to go to find himself a new wife. So
Women there are beautiful, absolutely.
Indeed. And with that, but before, since we're on super chats, before
let's
we
grab a
move
few.
on here, on the topic of Free Guy, says, saw Free Guy and it was fun. Reminded me of Ready Player One. Heard there's a part 2 on its way. Willie Woodward said for $5, some are arguing theaters will die, especially with them putting out bad movies. Theaters will do fine, maybe make deals with indies. HW is in trouble, in his opinion. What's HW?
Hollywood.
Hollywood. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I just love it when people use like these hyphenated things, or like these short
The initials. Yeah.
initials. Thank you. And Sontar said, "I knew Dune was woke when they did the race and sex swap. At least I enjoyed the Grand Prix Trois Reveries this weekend. First race weekend in 2 years. Okay, cool.
Well, that's the thing with Dune that really bothers me most before we get too far into it, because we are going to talk about it anyway. But, like, I mean, we have sat here for what, the last 2-3 years drumming about how just wait till the movie comes out, because despite the race and gender swaps and whatnot that are going on the surface
There's
level,
just one.
Yeah, there's
which,
just one.
well,
There's just one.
let's point being is, it's understandable how people would have knee-jerk reactions, and we have been doing everything we can to tell everybody, like, look, Andre's read the script, Script's read the script, we know Robert who's read the script, and a few other people. I trust your instincts on it. You said that it doesn't feel like it's woke through the script, but yet Denny and everybody else surrounding this movie are seemingly trying to do everything they can to make it sound like it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping for against hope, I guess, at this point.
Unfortunately, you know who they're talking to in like these things where they do all this virtue signaling. It's not for us. I can tell you exactly why they do it. I mean, whenever you have like them talking about, oh, we've done this and look how progressive we are, blah, 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 blah. That is because this is a movie that can be accused of having a white savior come to save the dark desert people. And in order to avoid that narrative being used against them by the Twitterati, they have to try to change the narrative before the Twitterati catches on to it. That's why. That's why they do it.
Can I ask a dumb question?
Go for it.
Hispanic guy on the panel here. And again, it's Monday morning, so I'm not sure how this is going to come out, but I'm going to try my best to mitigate myself. What's so wrong with anybody saving anybody else, regardless of color? I just don't get this.
Well, according to the ideology currently dominating Hollywood, people of a certain color are very, very bad and very, very evil, and they must always be presented in such a light. And if those very bad and very evil ever are portrayed as positive, and certainly if they are to be in a position where they help someone of a darker shade than themselves, then that's very bad, and that project must be cancelled. It is of course complete authoritarianism and a return to Germany of the 30s, but hey ho, that's where we are.
Yeah, and I would stress this, like, yes, we've read the script and it's quite a great adaptation. However,
it's a really good adaptation.
It's a really good adaptation, but I mean, I will say this: we're hoping it stays true to that script. Things could change during production. That's known to happen, but I mean, a lot of the stuff that's been reported on with the cast and the direction, and even some of the parts with the trailers, have kind of lined up with what we've read so far. So things are still kind of looking okay. So I'm hoping that's going to remain the case for this first venture of Dune, because I think people are going to really, really enjoy it, despite the reworking of Liet Kynes.
Yeah, and about that, here is what I have basically heard what happened with that, because many are annoyed with the race and gender swap of Liet Kynes, previously portrayed by Max von Sydow, who was Swedish and very, very white, and now the character has been made a woman and a black woman. And many are, of course, very quickly to go to, oh, this is woke. But here's what actually happened there behind the scenes, because now the studios, including Warner, they have like these own diversity and inclusion people whose only job it is to stick their nose into every single production and make sure that that some of the leads are non-white and non-heteronormative and non-straight and all of that jazz. And from what I was told, the director was told in no uncertain terms that you have to do a race and gender swap somewhere along the line here. And if you don't, we're going to do it for you. We're going to mandate, like, for instance, that a lead be made black or something like that. So what he then did, no matter what they say in public, is that he appeased the requirements and he chose a character that is an important character, but one that has a somewhat limited role in the story, and he was able to do it in a way that facilitated the casting of Zendaya as Johnny, who they really wanted. So that's kind of what happened with that. It's not that director Denis Villeneuve decided that, oh, I'm so woke that I have decided that I want to do this. It was more a matter of the studio mandates that there has to be a change somewhere along the line. So I'm going to do it right here, because there I can find a way where it serves the story. And that's what happened with the first movie. So I have said that change isn't necessarily woke, because it's something that was forced upon the production, and the director made the best out of it, while still preserving the integrity of the storytelling. But then we have this story. It has been picked up many, many places, but right here it is from Collider. And this is something that has many more people freaked out, because this does not affect the first movie, but it affects the second. And this then comes straight from the director. And the headline here is, the Dune sequel will switch leads to Zendaya's Cheney, assuming that there is a second movie. Now, everyone who have read the Dune books know that for the first 3 Dune books, the lead character is Paul Atreides, who kind of becomes the Messiah, and then only goes to show that the Messiah wasn't necessarily a Messiah after all. That's kind of his story. And then what we are now hearing straight from the director, because the quote from his is, I can't wait to shoot the second part of Dune to get Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya back together, knowing that in the next chapter, Zendaya will be the protagonist of the story. So this is a quote that comes directly from the director. So he himself confirms that Zendaya Cheney will be the protagonist. What do we all make of that?
Well, she's on the side of Paul Atreides, and so she is part of the protagonist, the same way that Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, and Obi-Wan are the protagonists of Star Wars. So we can hope that that's the interpretation that they're going with for that sequel. I would hope so, because it serves a purpose. I mean, in this next part of the story, Chani acclimates Paul Atreides to the Fremen ways, so she's a big part of that in a role to him as the two also fall in love. Part of me thinks that, okay, on the bright side of things, this could just be political wording to appease potential critics on the other side, and the other part could be maybe, yeah, he's going in a very peculiar new direction for the sequel. I don't know 100% at this point. It's too early to tell, but it's a very peculiar thing to talk about before the first movie has even dropped.
Yeah, exactly. Mike, what do you make of it? How much do you even know of Dune in the first place? Like, have you read the books?
No, all I've seen is all I did is seen the movie and then that other special movie, whatever. That's it. But so I can't. I'm not, unlike Kevin Smith. I'm not going to pretend to know something about it if I had the property that I don't know about. So I mean, but my trigger meter's out generally pretty high on most things. So I mean, here's the question I'm going to ask. This is just a basic thing, and there's someone in chat said this earlier. I can't find where it was. And why with stuff like this? Why don't you just stick to the book? Or I mean, supposedly everybody that I know that was into these books loved them and loved the stories. And you know, for all the complaints about that came out from the movie, I own it and I've probably watched it 5 times. And I wanted to get into the books, but I just, you know, there's so many other things that I read that I haven't never gotten a chance to. I don't know.
And these books are an investment.
Mm-hmm. Let's be fair. I mean, on the surface here, without even digging too far deeper underneath it, I can understand where people would have a knee-jerk reaction to this. We saw the same thing how many times over?
Oh, yeah.
This is getting to be a common practice.
It's a habit.
And, yeah, it's and again, it's almost like Denny is working against himself. I get what you guys are saying, and I get what he's doing here, but why don't you just say, like, we're going to do our best to stay as faithful to the novel as possible? There's nothing wrong with saying that. There's not a damn thing wrong with saying that.
That's exactly.
He might also be preemptively heading forward with this, because if this ends up being a trilogy as rumored, Chani's not going to be in the last one.
That's exactly right.
So you might as well give her the attention in that sequel if you can, but hopefully not at the cost of the rest of the characters.
Yeah. If I were to guess, this is just my guess. As I told you guys before we went live, I was really, really impressed with the script for the first Dune movie, the one that is due to be released in actually just a couple of weeks here in my neck of the woods. But anyway, what I thought was so impressive about this is that it had taken this really huge, massive book, which is really complex and multi-layered, and it found a really, really good way of relaying the story better than I thought was done both in the 1984 movie and in the 2000 miniseries. And I'm not going to spoil too much here, but the reason that I thought that worked so well is that they have kind of changed the point of view character. The whole movie is kind of the reason the script works so well, because it has all the important elements, not every element of the original book, but it has the important elements, and it's able to convey them all because it takes the angle of Jessica being kind of the point of view character, and she is the one initiating Paul into the world. She relates to him and to the audience, the backstory and what is going on and everything. That is how they chose to change the narrative. So it's not the story, it's just a narrative, how it's presented. And at least reading it, that worked fantastic. And it kind of works because she's a Bene Gesserit. She knows this world. She knows everything about it. Whereas Paul, he's still young. He's the one being initiated into the world of the houses of the Landsraad and everything like that, and the old feud between the Harkonnens and the Atreides, all of those things. So she's kind of like the perfect person to use as the narrative focal point. My hope is that what he actually means, the director, when he says that they're going to switch the protagonist to Zendaya for the sequel, to Cheney's character, is that they're going to do something similar. They're not actually going to make her the lead character, but they're going to make her the point of view character. Because in the second part of the story, that will follow the second part of the book, this is where Paul will learn the ways of the Fremen. Who's going to be the one initiating him into it? Well, it's going to be Stilgar, and it's going to be Cheney. Now, she's the woman in his life. So I don't know anything. This is just me speculating, but my speculation is that if they are consistent with what they have done before, we may, I hope, simply be getting the second movie, if it is made from the point of view of Cheney, seeing Paulie and his growth through her eyes. If that's what they mean, I think this is probably fine. This is a good way of doing it, because that way you kind of like have a consistency throughout the series. And for the third movie, if they stay true to the books, Cheney isn't going to be in it. So then you might see the third one from Paul's point of view. That kind of would make sense to me for a whole trilogy. From the first movie, you'd see Paul from his mother's point of view at one stage in his life. In the second movie, you'd see Paul from his woman's point of view for the second stage of his life. And then in the final movie, you'd see Paul from his own point of view and what he has become. I don't know that that's what Villeneuve is going to do. It's just, to me, it seems logical that would be one way to continue what they already started. Script. Am I being wildly optimistic or hopeful here, or could Villeneuve be that smart?
You can flip a coin to get a more accurate answer at this point with Hollywood. I'm hoping that would be the direction he goes. It seems like a very interesting one that would benefit the book and the fans of the series, and definitely bring in newer fans. I don't think we'll be able to solidify that type of take until we see that first movie and see how much it either stays true to the script that we read or how much it differs. So, yeah, I want to be hopeful for this. We definitely need a very good, cerebral, and entertaining science fiction film, and Dune can fill that role for this time. But it all comes down to the direction, the production, and are they sticking to their initial plans when they actually greenlit this venture?
I'm not the world's biggest Dune fan by any imagination, okay, and it's just for lack of investing the time, because all the people that I respect love it, and I've been listening to you guys talk about the script for a long time, and from what I understand, is it was a good version. And I could be wrong, but I thought I understood that it was a good final version before they went into production. So unless a whole lot of changes were made, we desperately look, as someone who's gotten the ass kicked out of me in Star Wars, Star Trek, and God knows how many other properties, one way or the other, I am desperately looking forward to an awesome Dune movie because of a lot of the stuff that I've heard from you guys on Midnight's Edge and Midnight's Edge After Dark about the script, and Tom too. And so I'd be disappointed for my brothers and sisters who are hardcore fans, but I'm looking forward to it. And I think the way you laid it out, Andre, that's a pretty brilliant way to navigate the woke seas, if you know what I mean. And I think it's pretty. I would say if we're going to flip a coin, I'd go 60-70% that's going to be okay.
Well, that's what upsets me about seeing headlines like this, is it's not going to help them in any way. Like none of the people that are going to be even remotely interested in this movie because you've changed something to quote unquote make it woke, they're not going to come running. We know this shit. They're not going to like this. This is not something that was ever going to be in their, purview, or however you want to put it. But what you're doing here with headlines like this is driving away the core fan base. And I don't understand the reason for doing this. To me, it's mind-boggling. I get
Here's the thing, though. Do they understand that? I don't think they understand that they drive away the core fan base.
Well, no, and as I think that they're that stupid. So no.
Well, they're talking to journalists that have this own perspective, and they're being asked questions specifically to elicit these types of answers.
Yeah, because I don't think that they realize that they're driving away their core audience. Honestly, I think that they live in their own little North Korea in Hollywood. They live in their own little bubble where they think Twitter is reality, so they treat it
Yeah.
as such, where they genuinely believe that everyone who is critical of the amazing and progressive work they are doing is an evil, toxic, white man baby, all that jazz, right? Trump supporter, whatever, what have you not. And they probably want to drive those people away because maybe some people genuinely believe that this is the audience and the audience loves this. And those that don't believe that, they still have to play along, because if they try to play devil's advocate and challenge the narrative, they're out the door. Script, am I on to something? Like, since you work in the Hollywood system?
Well, you're pretty close. I mean, think of it this way: from people who work in the industry, they are far too busy making movies and television shows to pay attention to the outside world. So something like social media is a blessing to them. And because social media only taps a very small percentage of the local community, and I mean that with,
small.
like on nationwide wise, they're getting terrible information. And the same, and then that information is still reinforced when you have these kids coming out of college working as assistants and readers and stuff, like propagating that same mentality. And then you also have advertising companies who aren't going out on the ground to actually interview and talk to people to get an understanding of what people like, what people want, what people buy. They just start using the same outlet of social media that, you know, the producers, execs, writers, directors, actors are all pointing in. So you have one section of society in a digital platform that is so small compared to the actual impact of what goes on, trying to manipulate the very business that is supposed to be representative of that very society. I mean, the whole idea of Hollywood is like, oh, we're going to tell human stories. And how do we get that? Well, we draw from our own personal experiences as we come into the industry and tell the stories that way. And if we want to stay current, we either go back home for a vacation or something, see what's going on there, travel around. But if you're too busy to travel around, well, you can just flip open your phone or your laptop and scroll online and see what's happening there, and get a very perverted interpretation of society. And as that is adopted into the stories that we tell, we end up seeing, like, you know, bad movies, or for less of a better expression. So yeah, it's a snake eating its own tail at this point. You got to kind of break out of that bubble on your own once you realize that you're in it. But it's really hard to realize that because you're getting paid, you know, for some people tens of thousands of dollars, for other people millions of dollars to make movies of this type.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's very difficult to break out of a bubble that you are firmly entrenched in, especially if you live in Hollywood, you work in Hollywood. Every single person you encounter that talks to you, either they are deranged or they pretend to be deranged, as they don't want to be outed as based.
Yeah, because the argument is like, how could I be wrong when I've just sold a script that does all this stuff for $500,000? Clearly, I can't be wrong if I got this in the bank,
and
right?
And this is like what I think is really bad, because then I think you're also going to have loads of yes people and everyone feeding the same bullcrap narrative back to you, reaffirming your own thing, like a true bubble dweller, where you are fed back the same narrative over and over again, making the brainwashing complete.
Well, yeah, this happens for celebrities when they go crazy. I mean, they go crazy because everyone around them is telling them that they're perfect, they're great, putting them up on a pedestal. But when they start interacting with the public, the people that buy their stuff or what have you, and it doesn't line up, they break down.
That must be a very sobering experience.
If they survive it, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Also, on that note, I want to bring this one up on screen. Michael Millard says for 35 South African runs. A journal asked me how I view lesbian relationships. In HD was apparently an inappropriate answer. The correct answer would be 4K.
4K.
Yeah, that would be the correct answer. We're way past HD by this point, so
yeah. but no, like let's be real. Dune is kind of what bothers me most about this, I guess, is I know they have this fucking stupid idea that they're going to drive these old fans out and it's going to make it a safe space for all these new fans. But Dune is kind of a clean slate, right? Like it's been a good generation since we've even had a version of it, and there was a generation before that. It's not a property that has a specific version that everybody's really extremely tied to. Like, yeah, everybody knows for the most part the Lynch version, but it's not held in the pantheon of things like Ghostbusters or Star Wars or things of that
Not
sort.
by the general public.
Yeah,
No,
to where
it's
I
a
feel
very
like
niche thing.
Exactly, where I feel like it's completely untouchable. And here you have this opportunity to make the fans that do exist for this franchise extremely happy and bring a whole new fan base to this franchise like they did with Lord of the Rings. And I keep
Oh my
bringing it
god, I
up
was
that
about to
way.
say right now, some of my friends who tried telling me to read Dune and stuff, they're like, Mikey, if you love Lord of the Rings, you're gonna love this. This is the sci-fi Lord of the Rings.
Well, I remember when Lord of the Rings came out because specifically because I had I owned my own video store at that time, and I remember talking to people about it. And people were aware of it, but as I bring up time and time again, you got to remember when it came to Lord of the Rings or any of that kind of mythology, the closest anybody had really gotten to it or had any kind of experience with it was the 77 Hobbit TV animated film from Rankin and Bass. Like, that is the most popular piece of material we had ever had come out of come out of there. So that's most people's
What,
knowledge
not
of it at that
Spock
point.
singing Bilbo Baggins?
No, not really. That kind of fell off until like that more or less resurfaced like after his death more than anything from my recollection. But I mean, yeah, we were aware of it in nerd circles. But I remember telling people about Lord of the Rings. They're like, "Oh yeah, I remember the books, or I've heard of the books, or whatever. They just seem too much or too big, and it's all geeky and nerdy and all this stuff." And I'd have to explain people, what it was and stuff like that. But speaking of nerds and such, we have a nerd who's really, really into Dune.
So
Miss
perfect. Very glad to
Elaine,
have her here.
aka Nerd Cookies. How you doing?
Hello, I'm doing good. Doing all right. How are you guys?
Oh, we're
Great.
doing all
Glad
right.
to hear it. Excellent. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for the invite. Always glad to talk about Dune.
If there's anybody who is into Dune as much as Andre, it's you, as far as I can tell, or at least spends as much time on it, or more time on it than Andre, anyway.
Yeah, it's an awesome universe. Highly recommend if you haven't explored the books. We have also some really great merchandise that's coming out too. Very exciting as far as the games go, and the art of making Dune and all the graphic novels. So it's very exciting.
How's the Funkon game coming along? I've forgotten the updates on it.
It's kind of stalled, I guess, for now. Haven't they were probably hit, with the pandemic as well. So it was going to be slow going anyways. So haven't heard anything new regarding that. So I would probably still assume that's about at least a couple years out.
I should try to reach out to some there. I know people working in Funkon. So
Yeah.
yeah. But,
well, I hope we get a Dune sequel.
Yeah, I hope so too. But assuming we get one, we now have this comment. I'm sure that you heard our discussion on it. What I hope to be the correct interpretation of it. But you, of course, you are well on top of this. Why don't you take us through a little bit more details? What was the context in which Villeneuve made this comment, and what do you make of it?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yes, I did a video on it this morning, released that, because when I saw the headline, I was, of course, very, probably the same reaction as everyone else, gut reaction. Just what? And then when I read the rest of it, I was like, well, I think the headline's very misleading, because it doesn't really, he didn't say that he was switching out Paul for Cheney. I think in the context and seeing just what he's done so far in the first adaptation, and factoring in that this was an Italian interview, this was an Italian magazine, and I'm not sure if the interview was done in English or French. and then translated into Italian and then back into English for us. So I think there might be a little bit. I think we should take that into consideration as well. Maybe something got lost in translation, but it seems that to me, it seems more accurate in how he's handled the source material so far, that he's merely commenting that, yeah, Chaney's not around very much in the first, or I keep going back and forth between Chaney and Chani. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I use both of those names. So yeah. Yeah, she's very much a supporting role in the first half of the adaptation. So, but it sounds like he was really impressed by her performance and just wanting to see more of her, which we do see more of her in the latter half of the book. I like that he emphasized her as more like seeing the visions of her, and it looks like he's tried to emphasize the supporting characters, and not just Chani, but also Duncan Idaho, who also has like just a couple, few appearances that are described. But we hear him talked about. We hear his actions and what he's been doing on Arrakis. So his impact is certainly felt more than, and in previous adaptations, he was just nothing but a cameo kind of, and he was very diminished. So it sounds like that's going to be different in this. So along those lines, Chani will also be similarly emphasized as far as telling the story. And that just sounds like that will just continue, and on into the sequel. And again, I just think, I'm not sure. I feel like we just need to know more before, get the sequel before we even know what's going on.
No, I mean, well, and Andre's kind of making that point a little bit too ahead of time. But again, I mean, I can, to me, it's like, why would you even do this?
Yeah.
I mean, I get why they're doing it, but like Denny should have known better. He should have, regardless of how the translation worked out.
Mm-hmm.
And I get where you're coming from, because she's probably not even in this movie that much. She's probably in, because from my knowledge of where this script ends and how the story goes, she's probably mostly in just visions until the latter
Mm-hmm.
half of the film. Like probably the because they don't even meet until how much is even in the script, Andre? Because like,
well, till they meet the Fremen.
Yeah.
So that's probably later. And I think too that, as this headline also suggests, like the media personalities, some media want to push controversy, and so this possibly could have been framed around pushing that. I mean, he was already talking about how women are important to the story of Dune. So along those lines, yes, he was kind of going along with the Chani's character. So that is true, but the same thing could be said about Lady Jessica. She is just as much of a main character, I would say, that as Paul is. They both have a lot of scenes and are very integral to the story. Lady Jessica has a very significant part, and it's really hard to say if there's just one lead character, especially with an ensemble story like this. It's very much in line with like Lord of the Rings. You could say that Frodo is possibly the hero, or some would say Sam. It's just, but it's an ensemble story. There's like multiple leads. So I feel like that too. She is a protagonist, but that's the thing. She's a protagonist, one of the main characters, as we'll see if there is a sequel, because there's just so many. Stilgar, Lady Jessica still has a main part to play in the sequel, and of course Paul as well. So, that's just, to me, it's like there's just not one singular protagonist. It centers around, yes, this charismatic leader rising to power, but that's just the main theme. But all these other players factor into bringing that story to life, and they all have an essential part to play. So yeah, it's hard to say, like, figure out the one. You just can't swap out Paul for Chaney. I just don't think there's any way narratively that it's even possible.
Crazier
so when looking
things
at
have happened in other properties.
Well, yeah, we have. I mean, there's He-Man, which I think is why loads of people are extra sensitive. I mean, you wouldn't think it would be possible to kill He-Man twice over the course of 5 episodes, but they found a way. So,
you wouldn't, and then you wouldn't.
Here, but
exactly.
Yeah, there may be something along those lines in regards to the Sisterhood series, the the Bene Gesserit focus series that's supposed to be. Well, I think they just got a new showrunner, so it's. I think they are moving ahead with that, just kind of slowly at this point. But yeah, that is that is definitely going to be a Bene Gesserit focus series, so definitely a women focus series.
And that
But
might
you'll
not
have
be
to
a
change
bad
the
thing.
entire story.
Yeah, and that might not be a bad thing, because they are, through the Bene Gesserit, you can explore the entirety of the Dune universe. And this goes back to what I was saying about like this movie, the upcoming one. The reason that they were able to crack the script as good as they did, in my opinion, is that they made the Bene Gesserit the point of view character in Jessica. And you could totally do that for a series. Then you can explore all other aspects of the whole Dune universe through their eyes. And then maybe in later seasons, you can maybe like have one Bene Gesserit break ranks. You can see how corrupt the Bene Gesserit are and why they're called Bene Gesserit witches. So it's like all in the execution, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. Like Frank Herbert crafted this story, and of course, powerful women are featured in it, but they're not like what we're used to seeing now. I guess it's kind of a trope now, the strong female character, because they're kind of a mockery of what they used to be, which is more complex, feminine, but also strong and have vulnerabilities. And you can have, Lady Jessica has incredible abilities as a Bene Gesserit, but the way they use their powers is what's so interesting about them. They keep it very much on the down low, and it's very much covert and behind the scenes, because they don't want to reveal how much power they have, because they don't want to be a target, which they very well could be a target because of how much power they hold behind the scenes. So that's just very interesting. It's very multi-layered and complex, and Lady Jessica herself like maybe makes mistakes as well. That's the other thing, that we see tropes now with strong female characters, that they're overpowered, but also that they can't make mistakes, or that everyone loves them, or it's not relatable. It's not what women can relate to, because that's just wouldn't exist. So even Frank Herbert crafted these powerful characters, but did it in a way that we still relate to them on a human level, on man or woman. It's a well written and fleshed out character, and just doing that, just focusing on that, as opposed to like injecting anything, perceived agenda or that you feel needs to be injected into it, is unnecessary, because it's already there. And the research and complex storytelling was already done. So I feel if they just stick with that, they're going to do really well.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see. I just hope that they do well, because we're getting so many franchises completely and utterly ruined in this day and age. And I just hope that Dune can get away reasonably unscathed. I mean, just He-Man, that hurt me more than words can say. It didn't destroy my love of the brand. Like when Star Trek is dead to me, but He-Man survived. But I would really hate for Dune, something that I have wanted a new adaptation of for almost 20 years, and now that it's finally here, to be sacrificed on the altar of contemporary political correctness.
Yep.
A political correctness that future generations, assuming sanity prevails, will look down upon the same way that one today views the political correctness of Germany in the 30s. So, yeah.
Unfortunately, they aren't seeing it that way. They're seeing it as indoctrination. And that's where I've actually heard, I can't remember who it was, but some writer or something was talking about how, oh yeah, we may not be into all this stuff, but these kids who are coming up now, this is going to be the stuff that they play for years and years and years, and they're going to appreciate all the work we've gone through to make it more inclusive and diverse and blah, 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 frickin' blah.
Yeah, pretty much the exact same talking points that were used by the writers in Germany in the 30s. Same writing points. It's just like slightly different who they choose to highlight as good and bad. much the same underlying attitudes. When you don't view people as equal, then regardless of who it is, then there's nothing good will come from it. And of course, you don't have to go to Germany in the 30s. You can go to Eastern
Andrea,
Europe.
I want
to
let you address this because I've seen a lot of people making this point in the chat about, oh, Dune was inevitably woke. It was going to be woke. It was going to be woke. We've been telling you guys this, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Look, Andre has the fucking script. He has read it. Okay? We have said this to people time and time again. Up until recently, there was very little reason to worry so much of outside of them putting on a fucking horse and pony show for the media, which is very well what this could be. Like, I agree with Elaine, like when she was talking, like that's what I was saying. Like Shani is not a big character in the first half of the book. And if you split the book up, yeah, she's going to become a much bigger character in the grand scheme of things in the second film. That is not an argument that needs to even be made or pointed out. But for them to jump
just look at the Dune miniseries from 2000. You could argue that Shani is the lead in episode 2. But anyway, here's like the thing with woke.
There's more than one, I'd say. It's just.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is like this entire cast is a huge fucking cast of people. Like, it's a very large cast in comparative, even to like Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings has a large cast, but it's kind of sectioned off, and you have like the 2 or 3 main groups of protagonists you're kind of following.
Well, yeah, and each group has a protagonist or 2 type of thing, so it works.
And again, I understand it could be something that, they can go a million ways about it and fuck this up in 100 ways. And White Knight, you're right. The first movie could be fine, and then the sequel they go off the rails. That's very plausible. Mm-hmm. Like, we've seen that how many times where they'll do a really great job of adapting the first book, but then they'll turn around and they'll fuck up everything after that.
A little bit too many. But still, I understand why many are of the opinion that they think more and more people see the wokeness. Because here's like the thing. When so much of our joint cultural heritage is sacrificed on the altar of political correctness or contemporary political correctness, when so many properties are given an ideopolitical makeover, and the core audience of most of these properties are told that you are evil and bad for traits that you were born with that you cannot change. People are going to eventually start being hypersensitive, and sometimes they will instantly jump to that's woke without it necessarily being. But you can't blame anyone for having that reaction. So I don't blame anyone for like thinking that that Dune is guaranteed going to be woke. Can't blame anyone for thinking that. But having read the script, assuming they haven't drastically changed it in the months between that draft being date stamped and shooting beginning, the movie is still going to be a fair adaptation of the source material, and we already know the one swap that has been done there, and it doesn't really affect the story. So but
you and everybody else who's read it has said the same damn thing to me. One thing specifically that sticks out, and that is this is the closest to the book that we've ever gotten, according to the script, anyway.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And y'all know how I feel about the Lynch one. I like certain aspects of it, much like Dendi has said. It has very strong qualities, but it diverts from the book a lot. The weirding modules, they heart plugs, the rain at the end.
That was those were far bigger changes than anything in this movie.
Yeah, like that actually affects the story, and like far-reaching with the rain at the end had a lot of impacts going forward. So that pretty much ends the story there. So yeah, that's what my point of view is looking at it. I've seen people take far more like greater liberties with the source material and the interpretation. So I haven't seen anything like as egregious as that. I don't like the gender swap, obviously, and I feel like feel like Idris Elba is still my pick, especially if you see him in Thor Ragnarok. It just looks like how I pictured how he would look in that. But it is what it is, and like you were saying earlier, Andre, about it. I don't know if that was just a sacrifice made to appease, but what they've said since regarding it, how it was important for them to get the spirit of this character right. I mean, that's important. I mean, I wouldn't have liked the change anyways to begin with, but if you're gonna do it, at least try to at least be faithful when you're with your performance. So, yeah, that kind of throws the wrench to the rings, the gender swap. But everything else, I can't say there's anything else that really deeply concerns me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, all right. That's excellent. So thank you for your observations. That's
And I've got I got to take a work call.
Yeah, with that,
No problem.
Mike, thanks for joining us as always. It's always a pleasure when you have the opportunity to join us.
Tomorrow, I will be co-hosting. I understand Latino or Midnight Sage in Espanol with you for the morning
Yes.
show. So 12 noon Eastern time, and then Tom, I'll see you tomorrow afternoon on After Dark.
Sounds good, sir. Take care of yourself.
Sounds like a plan.
Elaine,
All
great
right.
here. Great. Thanks for everything you're doing for the franchise. Hey, a quick question, Elaine. If I get into the book, should I go with the originals first or hit the prequels and go that way? Or how do I
Originals.
do that?
Original, yeah. I always go in order of how they were published. That's just me because I feel like prequels are made when you already have a knowledge of the original. Like, so you might, I don't know, might be weird to read it in that order, but that's just me. I would always recommend the original author because he's the writer. He is the writer of Dune, and that should be your first introduction into this universe. My opinion, though. But yeah.
Okay, we'll do. Thanks for everything.
Thank you.
And I'm actually reading the books in chronological order, and it took a whole heck of a lot longer than planned when I could no longer listen to the audiobooks commuting. So I'm behind schedule there. But after having read the first 3 prequel books, the first chronological 3, and they ain't bad, but getting into the universe, you only want to read 1 book. And that is the original Dune. And then you assess after that if you want to continue or not.
Yeah, I agree.
Got it. All right. Thanks, you guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
Yeah. Have a great day.
No, and I mean, honestly, I have very little investment in the franchise. Like when I watched it for like a couple of years back when we did that retrospective, that I believe was the first time I ever watched it all the way through.
Yeah, I think it was so. I remember like you complaining like when you got the script for it, you were like, I don't know what the hell any of this is. So that was like funny.
No, because I remember renting it as like, I don't know, I was probably 10, 12 years old the first time I rented it, and I got maybe 10, 15 minutes into it, and I'm like, this fucking sucks, and I quit watching it. And then I tried it again when I was a little older, because I was like, maybe I just wasn't in the right headspace. I'm a little older now. Maybe this is a little bit more sophisticated than I was at that time. And I tried it again. I think I got to the same spot again, and I just gave up. It was like, but for some reason I got past that hump the one time recently when we were doing the retrospective, and then I don't know, it clicked a little bit more for me then. And then after talking to you guys and stuff like that, I kind of got a little bit more of a feeling of what the initial story and intentions were. So, I mean, I guess you could say I've become a fan, but I wouldn't consider myself a diehard fan. So don't
very, very casual one, I think.
Yeah. So
putting it.
Don't fool yourself. When this movie comes out, if I think it sucks in the least bit or is woke in any way, I'll fucking point it out. I got no investment in defending a movie or a franchise for any reason whatsoever.
Yeah. And about the interview here behind the scenes, I'm hearing from Natasha, head of Wrenches, who is also a professional translator. She has a copy of the entire interview, and the translation of that quote is right, but the original interview was definitely not in Italian. So there's been some translation back and forth going on there. But
so he could very well just be
the
saying
one
she has a
snippet we
bigger
got
part.
is correct.
And again, I don't want to sit here and put words into Denny's mouth either. So
yeah. So I think we're just going to have to wait and see. Like, first, we're going to have to wait to see, will there be a sequel, period, which I sincerely hope there will be. Although I am prepared that it's probably going to be on HBO Max and made with the Mando tech instead of them blowing another like 200 million or something, shooting it all on set.
Right. Well, and Fear is the Mind Killer.
With.
Honestly, I'm harder on things that I love than I am on things that I don't love. So like if anybody brings up the Michael Bay Turtles, I fucking hiss.
Yeah, but that's how it is, isn't it? Like I mean, all the criticism that many people like say that, oh, you're toxic, blah, blah. No, actually, all the criticism comes from a point of love. We love all of these properties and we want to see them done right. And when they're not, we hiss because they've been disrespected. They could have been done so much better. For Tom, it's Turtles. So me and Tom, we can't talk too much about that because there where I'm the casual fan and far more tolerant of things that makes him hiss.
You don't understand. I almost needed therapy after I listened to Andre's review of Ninja Turtles. The second one.
Yeah,
I must have missed it when it initially came out. And then after I became part of the team, I went back to see if there's any videos I missed, and that happened to be one of them. And I watched it. And I think the first thing I did was yell at Andre through. He probably heard it through the message, even though it was in text form. It said, "How the fuck did you like Out of the Shadows? What is wrong with you?" I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it.
So I maybe shouldn't tell you that it may be my favorite turtle movie of them all.
I can yeet you as well, right?
Yeah, no, it wasn't good. It wasn't good, but it had Bebop and Rocksteady, and they were awesome, especially Rocksteady, more so than Bebop, which was surprising because I really liked the actor playing Bebop. I mean, Uncle Rock is for the win. So yeah.
I'll probably have to head out soon. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Nerdcock is thanks for joining us. Everyone, be sure to check out your channel. And I believe there was a super chat aimed at you here. Here we are. Martin Allen said for £5. Good points all around. Nerd Cookies, your video on the upcoming Lost Starfighter sequel is great.
Aww.
So yeah, everyone go check out Nerd Cookies Cookies video on the Last Starfighter sequel. And the link to her channel is not yet in the description because she was a surprise guest jumping on, but it will be soon.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, everyone on the panel and in the chat. You guys are great.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. See you later.
All right. With that, let's do the rest of the super chats here. Let's see where we were. Rude Artist says for $4.99 in the book, as Paul rises to power in the Fremen, Johnny becomes his right-hand woman, going forth and kicking Harkonnen ass while he strategizes. Yes, indeed. Trenchman wonders, is WWC, so I guess World War C, a Gary Stu movie? I barely remember that movie. Script and Tom, is World War C a Gary Stu movie?
I can't remember it, sadly. I remember the book more than I do the movie.
Stu per se, because like both the book and the movie, the basics is them kind of trying to figure out, how to deal with it. So I don't know if that necessarily. I mean, it's been I don't know how many years since I've watched the damn movie. I don't know. I mean, that's tough to say. I'd have to see it again. I mean, does he do a lot of stuff that's way out of what should be his skill set? I guess I don't recall. I mean,
I don't remember it. I only remember bits and pieces of the movie, which
yeah, and I'm not speaking to the quality overall. I just know that both the story and that's about the only thing they share as far as like, yeah.
I remember that. The thing I remember most is that's one of the few times where they spent a shit ton of movie retooling practically the entire movie, and it worked.
Yeah. That's true. They were halfway through production and they realized this is not going to do well.
And then they spent a crap ton of money. I think they got another director in, or was it the same director? The same director who did Quantum of Solace, I believe. Forget his name.
Campbell, Martin Campbell, isn't it? No,
it's not Martin Campbell.
Martin Campbell
He did. It's the other one. It's the guy who took over for the second Bond movie. I'm almost positive that Martin Campbell had nothing to do with World War Z. Martin Campbell, he did Casino Royale and did a great job retooling James Bond there. And then the second guy kind of
Mark
botched it.
Forster. There it is.
Yes, Mark Forster. That's the one. I don't recall if he was the one who did the reshoots and the retooling, or if they got someone else and just gave him credit or whatever. But it was like a huge, huge debacle. I mean, if Midnight's Edge had been around at the time, it would have been one of the movies that definitely would have been covered. But there, they actually made it work. The retooling worked in that case, which is why we always say that when you do spend money on retooling something, there doesn't have to be any shame in it because it actually might work. Look to World War C for an example of that. But if there's a Gary Stu in it, I don't recall. I don't remember the movie in enough detail. I just remember bits and pieces of it. So maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of arguments to be made for movies in the past that have had Gary Stu characters, to be sure. But I just don't really remember him having any major. Well, I'm sure there was a few, but maybe that to where I would go to that point and say, "Oh yeah, that's a Gary Stu character."
Yeah. Daryl Brewer says for $10, why can't the activist people be happy with the Baron Harkonnen? Oh wait, they haven't read the source material. Well, yeah, and for those that don't know, the Baron Harkonnen, played by Stellan Skarsgård in this movie, is gay. Yeah, you'd think that would be a cause for celebration, but it may be mitigated when he's the villain, and it was definitely mitigated in the 1984 David Lynch movie in which they gave him space AIDS. Because that was kind of like a thing at the time. Which is also a reason why the Lynch movie would never, ever have been made today.
Oh, no, not in the least.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in that they wouldn't have got away with.
Oh, absolutely. And M. Bloodseeker says for $10, thank you so much. I await the day when writers go back to making timeless classics instead of making stories based on current year politics.
Well, we have to remember, though, that a lot of these movies that we consider classics were made in the modern era politics as well, though. I mean, I'm not saying to the extent they are now, though. That's the big difference, right? Like, even though like movies like, you know, Rambo and stuff like that got accused of being like Reagan era films and stuff like that. I mean, they do have elements of that era, but they don't.
Every movie is a product of its time.
Exactly. Yes. But the difference here is they're actually allowing the politics become detrimental to the storytelling overall.
Yeah. Well, it supersedes. Yeah.
Supersedes, exactly.
Yeah, I would like to say like the closest thing we get to right now is that the movies that come out of Hollywood in this day and age, and script, see if you agree with, see what you, not if you agree, feel free to disagree, but like my assertion is that the videos or the movies that come out of Hollywood in this day and age, I think history, depending if sanity prevails, will remember in much the same way the movies that came out of the Soviet Union in the 60s, 70s, 50s, and 60s, early 70s, 80s. Yeah. And there are some great movies that came out of there, but you also always have to view them from the lens that this was made by a communist regime, and there was an element of propaganda to them, which is palpable in the movies themselves. So you can still great movies, many of them, but it was with that undertone. I think the movies being made the past 10 years, certainly the last 5, many of them will have to be seen through a similar lens.
They will, yeah. Oh, yeah. They'll be looked at in much the same way some of the war propaganda films of the 40s were looked at that time, because there was a lot of them that were either pro-war or pro-fighting against a terrible regime, which you could argue is not a bad thing, but it's still propaganda. Except this one had a bit more of a moral incentive and also a little bit of a patriot incentive as well. It's like, well, we got to make sure that, you know, the Allies win, because you don't want, you know, the other guys coming over here because they're going to do something that's much worse. And then once that kind of passed, we went into the 1950s where they were still trying to use similar type of messaging, but just not in the same dramatic ways that were occurring prior. Because the 1950s is a decade of films where you don't really hear many people talking about them, even the hardcore cinephiles as well. Like, and there's some decent ones in there. I think there's even some noir films of that time that were kind of fading out, and westerns were kind of on the rise. Not until like the 60s, where the spaghetti westerns really kind of took charge, but that died pretty quick when you had the space race hit. So yeah, like there is always a gap within the industry of transition. I think we're in that part of it where we're being dominated by one perspective, but it's not generating enough to propagate it any further. So now another one's slowly going to be inching up, and that's why when I recommend people, it's like, hey, if you want to find something that doesn't have those propaganda or political agendas, sadly, you're going to have to work the hard way by basically Googling what came out in, say, 2019 and scrolling through all of those movies and then reading those log lines and synopses to figure out which one might actually be good, because they came out, they weren't advertised because didn't have the backing of, you know, the narrative of the industry, and so they might end up being like a cult sleeper hit classic in the way like, you know, The Thing or you know, well, actually, The Thing's kind of like one of the better examples of a movie that didn't do well at the box office, but has exploded on home video and media afterwards. So yeah, you got to kind of put in the effort, because again, one of the aspects of propaganda, especially on the Russian side of things back in those days, was the fact that the government promoted those films so heavily that anything else that was made without that type of direct pontification was not talked about or heard or even exposed at the same level. So the mass majority had no idea those other films would exist.
Yeah, exactly. So weird time of history. And then
Indeed.
Going back to World War C, Erik Runge Madsen says for 50 Danish krona, yes, Pitt is a Gary stew, unless the wax fails like in the book and turns him into a mass murderer. Okay, well, then I guess it's a Gary stew then.
Okay. I don't know the story well enough. I'm not going to argue.
Yeah, no, me neither. I barely remember the movie, never read the book. Yeah.
And besides that, there's something else that we definitely would have a lot less confidence in coming, at least a rumor anyway. So we'll get to that, but we got some super chats to get through first. So
yes, Martin Allen said, we got this one already, was for Nerd Cookies. Jay Hansen says for $5, Zendaya has great management. The Zendaya propaganda was going strong before the coup. It's just picking up where it left off in early 2020. And script, I guess that Zendaya must have a really good agent.
Yeah, but she's also, I think, a product of the Disney Kids program as well. So
what program is that?
Well, they have, you know, the child actresses. So they had I think they had Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, Jessica Simpson. They had Lindsay Lohan.
Like part of like the Mickey Mouse Club, or
kind of like the Mickey Mouse Club and like Disney Kids television shows. I believe Miley Cyrus is part of that for a while. So not many of them usually stick, especially on the musical side of things. They jump ship and then go crazy afterwards. But Lindsay Lohan was not really a singer. She kind of went through a.
What's Disney that one that was in like all the High School Musical movies and shit?
Like Zac Efron was one. Yeah.
Not just him, but the other one, the chick he was dating. But yeah.
Oh, I can't remember.
yeah, exactly. Like there's a bunch of those kids. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. But I guess what ended up happening, I mean, she managed to get some really good management teams afterwards that kind of kept her stable, so to speak, in comparison, because Disney is kind of notorious for really messing up kid actors. You just Google a Disney show
that
bad
like Nickelodeon, give them credit.
well, they kind of worked in hand in most cases.
Yeah, you're right.
So yeah, you got to take a look at that. I mean, child actors don't have an easy time at all. They're constantly being dragged around. They don't understand the politics of the industry, and which is very different well, at least used to be very different from conventional politics.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's one of the few that's kind of safely escaped that route right now. I think that Marvel's intervention by having her cast in Spider-Man helped a bit because it got her name out there a bit more prominently, but it also kept her into like still a family-oriented film, and she personally doesn't seem to have any desire to be rebellious yet. She's kind of past that age where that would have been a thing. So yeah, whatever team she's got support, if her family's involved to keep her her head above water, so to speak, and out of the clouds, it's working for her because she's been in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it appears so. She appears to be quite successful. So great representation there. And with that, we just got one more super chat here in. Let's see if we can bring that one up on screen as well. From Ruth Korean the Based, who says, on the bright side, the depressing 70s that brought us Death Wish, Dirty Harry, All the President's Men led to Star Wars and paved the way for sci-fi.
See, and the funny thing is two of those movies you just mentioned were lambasted at the time, and even more so now.
Yeah.
Like both Dirty Harry and Death Wish were called like conservative fucking wet dreams at the time, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, because of the absolutism and a little bit of the totalitarian nature that was perceived from these characters of like, I'm the authority, I'm right, I know what's going on, that type of thing. But no, Death Wish and Dirty Harry series are really fun and very interesting stuff.
Very fun, but no, like that again, like I'm saying, like some of this stuff isn't new, but like the difference is like you can watch something like Death Wish and Dirty Harry, you can see certain reasons why they would feel that way, and then other side of it's like just having fucking fun. Like it's just your typical cop / vigilante kind of story, really. You know, like they're reading way too much into it, especially compared to the shit we have now.
Yeah. Andre, did we get Diego Flores's $10 Proving Souls super chat?
No, I don't think that we did. I think we might have missed that one. I do recall that one. Let's see here.
Just give me one Andre, moment. Before I forget, you should get the Blood of Sadukar?
The Blood of Sadukar.
Sadukar comic that came out last month, waiting for my copy to arrive. It's a Dune comic centered on the attack against the Atreides.
Already have it.
So as soon as I knew how you say it, yeah, I figured you did.
And then Nintendo Power says for $5, I think the girl you're referring to that Zac Efron data was Vanessa Hudgens.
So. Yeah.
She ended up in a porno.
No, that's not the one I'm thinking of then. No, it's a different one.
I don't think that Vanessa Hudgens ended up in a porno. I know that she had like her nude pics were leaked and stuff like that, but I don't think that she ended up in an actual porno thing.
That's not the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah. And then we actually do have a couple of more here behind the scenes. Nerd Cookies said, I agree with Andre. Actually, that's how we saw her. So that was awesome. And then Kieran from Isle of Champions says for $4.99, let's wait. Dune is a very complex story. Female characters are strong. Paul wasn't really the hero, like I said in the chat before. Yes, indeed. Paul is not the Messiah, which is like the going story there. And let's see what else we have here. I think we can.
No, and I figured out it was Selena Gomez. That's who I was thinking. I was getting the two mixed up.
Justin Bieber, though.
Yeah. You're right. Nintendo's power right by saying Vanessa Hudgens because I said High School Musical, but you're right. Script on the other side. I just got them flip flopped. So yep. Thank you guys. You guys figured it out. That's really strange.
Awesome. Yeah. And then Meredith G says for $5, in Dune, the women's decisions are driving the action. The women are engaging in proxy power through their influence of the event. Yes, indeed. And then Mark Serkovsky says, for 100 Swedish krona, I think that people are still hurting after the bait and switch from Kevin Smith. We're just hoping this won't be another Masters of the Universe revelation. Yeah, I never want to see that again.
Hold that thought about Kevin. We may or may not have a little news about Kevin coming up here.
Oh, okay. Well, let's bring it up in a moment here.
Yeah, I think we're pretty close to catching up here, though. I don't know. You know where we're at. I'm lost. So.
I think you're caught up on all the past ones.
Okay, because then if not, we got one we can bring up on screen here. While Andre's checking that, I'll do that. Let's Watch sends in $20. Thank you so much. Speaking of movies, I got tickets for Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings. I know people aren't optimistic about it, but I am. I actually like Black Widow, so I'm hoping to like this one. Hey, I hope you enjoy it. Let's watch. And honestly, I don't think I'm going to dislike Shang-Chi. And when I saw the trailer, I think of all the people in our crew here, I was like the most optimistic for it.
I think so too. I think you were.
I was like, yeah, it looks like a kung fu movie. And I love me some kung fu movies. So like, I'll get into that.
I don't think the fights are going to be disappointing in that movie.
I hope not. I mean, the trailer, that's what I gravitated towards. Like, I didn't pick up on all the other stuff everybody else was. Like, I was just like, oh, yeah, it's a kung fu movie. I'll watch that. That's all I saw. But then, as people are pointing out other things, it's one thing. And then, figuring out about Shang-Chi is just kind of like, what's the point of this? Like, this character is not a very popular character. He's literally basically a ripoff of Bruce Lee. He disappeared for like the better part of, I think, 3 decades. And he's had like one story because CM Punk, the wrestler or something like that, wrote a story for him. And that's the only thing he's had in the last X amount of years. So is that what this is going to be based on anyway? I mean, I don't know. Like,
no, I think this is going to be a wholly original interpretation of the character.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out is where this came from and why. Like, because there's zero reason for it to exist.
Well, I think the motivation was to do the China market.
Exactly. I think that's just what I was going to say, Script.
Yeah.
But they should have consulted with Jackie Chan and Jet Li to figure out how to do that, because they're the only ones that have been really super successful in their own markets domestically.
Yeah.
I think that was a big mistake, honestly. Like, if they wanted to do a movie that they was going to cater to the China market, they probably did have to get someone like Jackie Chan involved and get the CCP involved in it from day one, because they didn't, and they just made a movie that they hoped that the Chinese would take to, like they hoped and assumed they would take to Mulan. You saw how well that worked out. And judging from the social media reactions, and then I mean the Chinese social media reactions, with all of the CCP stans posting there, repeating the narrative, it's not looking good for Shang-Chi in China.
No, and I think beyond the experiment, I think you're right, Andre, in your assessment with that video you dropped last night, and that Shang-Chi's just going to be sacrificed for several reasons, and it's going to be interesting to see the Game of Thrones that plays out here in the next few months.
Absolutely, that's going to be very interesting.
So for those who have not checked out the last couple of videos from Andre, I recommend you do highly, and that's not even coming from the fact that I'm here. I'm saying like Andre and Script and Cameron Pasha and stuff have really dug into this, and they've really pulled out some shit that I'm like, you know what? I think this is what's really going on. So I cannot recommend you guys check them out enough. I guess Valiant Renegade also did a great video as Cameron from a little bit different angle too. So I recommend that as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, it'll be interesting to.
And with that, how many more classic super chats do we got?
I think we are mostly caught up.
Wow.
I'm checking up here. But yeah, to anyone that is looking forward to Shang-Chi, I hope you will enjoy the movie. I think the movie is going to be fine. I don't think it's going to be spectacular anyway. I don't think it's going to be any Black Panther Chinese version.
No.
Or its Asian version, or however you want to put it. But yeah, we shall see. Personally, I look forward to seeing the Abomination in it.
I think its opening day will probably be around the 20 million mark.
I'm still debating on whether or not I'm going to go see it. I might just wait the 45 days.
Well, we don't even know if it's going to be for $30 rental after that 45 days.
No, I think it's just supposed to be going straight to Disney after that. For my, I mean, you're right. I don't know specifically for sure. I can't say, but my understanding is it's just going to go to theaters and it's just going to be on Disney Plus after 45 days. So, but you could be right on that. It might be for that $30 premium. So, speaking of Disney and Kevin Smith and all these things, there's a rumor going around. I've heard this a couple times throughout the weekend, and now a few people have been writing it up. But it's going around that Kevin Smith might be directing some episodes for Leslie Hedland's Star Wars show.
Yeah, that sounds like that sounds like exactly the kind of reward that you would get for completely destroying He-Man. Yeah. It's like, one of us.
So LGBT was just a resume.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, all his work on the CW is a resume as well, because those shows run themselves. You don't do anything much as a director on those types of productions.
What's he done with the CW?
He's directed episodes of The Flash
and Supergirl.
And I think he did
I think he did an episode or two of the one tomorrow, the whatever, the one I think
Legends of Tomorrow. Yeah,
I think he might have. I might be wrong, but yeah,
I definitely know Supergirl a lot because they do like him there.
He came in and started working for him. I think it was in the 3rd or 4th season of Flash, and then he's popped up a few times since then, doing some shit for him. Maybe
and the other part too, the Disney model here, they don't usually have their directors do a whole lot in comparison, especially on the Kathleen Kennedy side of things. They follow orders mostly. So his name attached doesn't actually do anything good or bad for this show.
And Stephanie brings up a point, was like, well, will Chapek even allow it to go forward? That's a good question. And that's a good spot for maybe Andre to kind of go through a little bit about some of the stuff that you have the conclusions you've kind of come to that I kind of agree with. So that kind of bounces off of this. How much of this stuff do you think we'll actually see coming out of Kathleen Kennedy's Star Wars?
I don't know. I've heard Kamran Pasha say that he's not convinced that the Acolyte is ever going to happen. And he could be right. Personally, I think that Kathleen Kennedy will have made sure to allocate resources and get everything so far ahead that it can't really be shut down. So it's going to depend on how long it takes for Chapek's structure to be fully implemented. Because whenever you change the structure for an organization, right, which Chapek is doing, like he's changing the focus from content to product and giving distribution and merchandise power. But that's not something that happens overnight. I mean, that's why corporations have roadmaps and everything, and there's going to be a roadmap for that transition. I mean, that's a transition that it could take a year, 2 years to fully change. It's not going to affect things that already were in motion at the point where they can't be stopped. And here's like the question then, is the Acolyte at such an advanced state that it would cost more to stop it than just to proceed with it? That's the question.
I don't even think they're finished writing it yet.
Yeah, and I'm kind of the opinion that Kathleen Kennedy may have given so much resources to it that at this point it would cost more to stop that particular ball than to let it roll for a season. Maybe, I don't know. So I'm not convinced that it's going to be shut down.
I think it all depends on what contracts have been signed too. And this is another point of contention for Chapek. And he's made it very well known, is he does not like the way they've been doing a lot of their contracts. So I'm sure that's another thing that he's going forward, that even though they may have to deal with whatever came prior, he will probably make sure that these kind of things are a little bit more looser goosey going forward to where he can get out of things.
Yeah, he might do something kind of cavalier, which is do buyouts and be like, I'm cutting all losses. I don't want to invest in this because I don't see any potential money for it. The distributors don't see any potential money for it. Toy manufacturers don't see any potential money for it. We're cutting our losses, eat the cost, and then invest what they can in something that would sell. If he did that, it would be the ballsiest move in town. But again, when the head of a studio kind of really affirms their position, a lot of the stuff that was in production that the previous head approved can be scrapped on a whim, and because they don't want it.
Michael Miller brings up an interesting point here. Question: how long until the other studios follow Chapek's lead? Well, first of all, I definitely want to hear from you and Andre's script, but my real quick assessment of this is that we have to see it work first.
Yeah.
You have to see, other people have to see it. If Disney has a huge turnaround of events, then maybe other people will start to notice. But yeah, this is a good move, I think. If Andre and Cameron and script are right, I think this is the turn that we've been seeing. And we've made a lot of analogies as to what it's like, but I think the best one I've come up with at this point is Hollywood, or these movies, or these studios, whatever you want to put it, they're all like a train. So when they do this shit, it's like turning a train, which is damn near impossible, right? So what you have to do is basically build track ahead of the train that turns. So that's kind of what they're doing here. Is like, I think that's what Chapek is doing, is laying the track for a possible comeback to Disney being the biggest in Hollywood again, if he plays his cards right. And I think he's on the right track. I think if you can use somebody like Tom
and
Robson,
he has to survive
example.
to see it through. He has to survive not being taken down for many, many years. Because here's like the thing, for the next few years, everything that's going to come is going to be things that came out under Iger. I mean, like, for instance, depending on the deals, even The Acolyte will be an Iger and Kennedy leftover that's going to come out on his watch. It's going to take 3 years for streaming, slightly less, but on average, it's going to take 3 years before you start seeing the full effects of his regime. That's what I mean. It's going to take like 1 year to 2 years just to implement the changes. And then it's going to be another year to 1 more year on top of that. So maybe a total of 4 years before Disney is fully remade in his image with the output and everything. And that means it's going to take 5 years for the rest of the industry to pick up and see, whoa, this is working. Because then you also have to have like some track record to see a before and after change that is clearly Iger's changes. So it's going to take years for the rest of Hollywood to follow his lead. If it works,
if he goes linearly, yeah, but it seems that Chapek's kind of working on multi-tiers right now. He's put something in place where various different areas are responding to his actions and then coming after him. So if I was in his position, I would have
how the cockroaches a fucking
yeah. Well, I would look at it this way. Let's say he'd probably be starting. The best way for him to actually maintain his position and prove that he's right is if he starts greenlighting things that are in parallel to the stuff that's already in production that's going to come out eventually. So if he ends up greenlighting something like, say, another Star Wars movie, and it comes out 6 months after the Rogue Squadron film, and it blows the Rogue Squadron film out of the water financially, successfully, in every single facet, that would be your signal right there from the rest of the industry. If you're like, yep,
this is a good point, yeah.
Chapek basically used Rogue Squadron to be like the lead-in for this other film, and this other film just decimated Rogue Squadron to show that, yeah, his leadership is the one that's making us money. Old leadership is completely designated as a failure.
Like Joker?
Actually, you know what happened with Joker? That would be, yeah, like the other part too is like the studio kind of still fought against that after its success.
Yeah, kind of like how it went up against Birds of Prey almost in a weird way.
Went up against Birds of Prey, and then
yeah.
But the thing is, again, that really shook up a lot of the industry on Warner Brothers' side, and an AT&T when they saw that as well, they're like, hey, yeah, we think this might be a better direction.
So Chapek needs a Joker, is what you're saying, basically.
Chapek needs a Joker, and one that he actually supports, because again, what really hurt hurt the flow for Joker within Warner Brothers is Hamada didn't support it and still doesn't like it. So,
Right, but
which
it's
is
egg all over their face,
unbelievable
yeah.
because it's $1 billion movie. But
yes.
yeah.
And it's technically, from what I've heard now, the most profitable movie of all time.
That sounds very weird to me.
I don't know, maybe within the 21st century. I don't know about all time, but
yeah, I don't know.
Given its budget and its
agree.
return,
Yeah, it's something to do with its return on investment or something like that in comparison to, and that would make sense because even though like a lot of those smaller budget movies make good money, they didn't make
weren't
like
$1 billion
movies.
so
that's my
true,
point.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
I can see that. I mean, $30 million movies or $50 million movies, as it was, generally don't make $1 billion.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I would say that even though like some might want to suggest that The Mandalorian was kind of like the Joker moment for Disney, and I would say, well, it's close, but it didn't do enough, and like it didn't do what the Joker kind of did, which is absolutely surprise people and then make a crack ton of money. And at the same time as like because there's a lot of parallels to it. Like The Mandalorian came out very successful, The Rise of Skywalker came out and dwindled, but they could always argue it was successful because of that $1 billion threshold they crossed.
There's a caveat: it's the most profitable comic book movie ever,
with an R rating, most likely too.
And that too, it's the most profitable R-rated movie ever as well.
So yeah,
that definitely is.
So yeah, Chapek just needs to have his Joker moment where the studio head is backing the project. It's got a reasonable budget, and it's kind of buttressed by another Kathleen Kennedy traditional Disney Lucasfilm release within like either plus or minus 6 or 7 months on either side of its release date. So, and that will be the watershed moment, so to speak. It's like, yeah, if he does everything that he thinks is right and it resonates with the audience and it explodes financially and critically, yeah, that will be his flag in the sand. It's like, look, I did it. I was right. Doesn't matter if you hate me or not, I'm right. and then everybody else will start following in line and be like, okay, what did he do? How did he do it? Why did he get rid of this? And then you kind of see the aspect, because Chapek's actions right now are basically circumventing the studio heads, because the studio heads at Disney Lucasfilm and Disney in general are trying to adopt the concept that they are also the creatives, just like the directors, writers, and actors, and they're not. They're the financiers. They're the support system. They're the ones that give you the yes or no, but trust the people they're hiring to do the job that they need in order to maintain their position and maintain a profit. I think he wants to get back into that original model, because that was what kept Hollywood alive for 100 plus years. So hopefully that will be the case as a result. And then the other studios that are big, that are kind of doing the same thing, will realize, yeah, we got to go back to that thing. We can't give J.J. Abrams $500 million and for like, a 5-year contract to develop stuff of that nature. We got to go, one step at a time. And
yeah.
No, and I think you're right. And I think the ball's in Chapek's court right now. Like, basically, it's up to him to prove to everybody that, I got no love for the guy. I got no reason to root for him other than he's got a shot at possibly bringing some things back to the way they were. And if Disney can lead the charge, all the better, because people will pay attention. You know what I mean? And I think this might even go as far back as the Gina Carano thing, because remember, who was the one that was under fire when all that happened, even though he had nothing to fucking do with it? Chapek. Chapek had nothing to do with that decision, and it was clearly made that decision was not made by him. And yet he was the one who's taken a lot of heat from that in the media. I think a lot of this was started back then and planted back then with this whole idea that, the leadership at Disney's all fucked. It's all fucked, and to me, it's like, okay, is it really? Because I think you guys are making the point. He's putting the power back into the hands of the people that will be on the front line saying, this is what's going on, instead of getting reports from the guys that are back 2, 3, 4, people, tears back from the front line of the war of this whole thing. And it's like, I think if Chapek really sees the bigger picture here, which I think he does, and that is he's got to turn this bitch around, because this is not the direction they want to be going. Because I'm sure that he's got to be noticing that the license, because like, yeah, they don't really feel the effect of toys not selling on the shelves. What they feel the effect of is when the next time around the licensees don't want to pick up the next thing, is which we saw in effect with, you know, Star Wars, basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope he's right. I hope this is what he's up to. I fingers crossed. I mean, and then maybe it's a return to capitalism and cocaine in Hollywood again. Who knows?
Well, let's hope. I mean, I'm willing to allow them some hookers and blow if it means actually making decent movies again. So yeah. And the Ghost, yes, says stockholders are 100% behind Chapek. I hope that doesn't change. I don't know about 100%.
The majority definitely are. Yeah.
The majority
but
are.
as long as the majority are, I hope so, because if he is just promising them more money, then all should be well. But we do have some dissenting opinions here, also, because I got a message on PayPal with a small donation there from Tony. I don't recall your YouTube username right now in the second, so sorry about that. Destiny something. And he says, Andre, the point that keeps getting missed about Chapek is that he is about maximizing profit. How he achieves this is not necessarily aligned with customer satisfaction. The parks are indicators of this. Fans of the parks dislike him generally because he cuts back on value and shrinks that experience while chasing higher returns via higher prices. That is not customer focused. It is profit focused. It's great for the shareholder and those chasing bonuses within the corporate structure. As you have said, he's siding with the big shareholders. That's all well and good, but if it's at the expense of the customer, it is almost as bad as the Vocosos and their crap. In both models, the customer gets shafted. We need to be very cautious about our excitement with Chapek. And yeah, those are some valid points right there. And maybe he wasn't the guy for the parks at all. But I still tend to believe that at the position where Disney is right now, at this point in time, what they need is a massive correction towards commercialism and profitability. And under normal circumstances, Chapek could be the completely wrong guy. And what he's doing to Disney right now, if he's able to bring Disney back on track, then at some point down the line, the changes that he has made needs to be undone by the next guy in charge. Then they have to take things a little bit more back to Iger again at some point in time. But I still believe that where Disney is right now, they need an extreme cure for what's happening. And this just may be it. Not a long-term solution, but a short-term one to get out of their current rut.
Well, one thing to also consider is that the filmmaking model is drastically different than a theme park model. With the theme park, yeah, you have direct customer interaction. You need maintenance. You need product to be available. You need affordability for most of your patrons to want to come and stay at your parks. With film, there's been gross overspending that's been unnecessary for a very long time. And if Chapek wants to cut those budgets down, cutting a budget down can actually end up fostering more creativity than dampening it. Because again, if they realize, oh, we don't have this much money, how do we achieve this outcome that we want for this scene or for this character? Well, then they actually have to go back to the writing aspect of it. They have to be a bit more creative and be a bit more under those constraints in order to give us something really, really good. Like, one thing to kind of consider is that the original Star Wars that came out was a $10 to $11 million movie at that time for budget-wise. And it didn't rely solely on all the special effects. Like, the biggest set piece is that Death Star attack. Everything else is all character-driven based and very, very intimate with character. And that's probably why Star Wars resonates better as a film compared to some of the ones that came later, which, I mean, it's all terrible, cliche set pieces of the Disney trilogy with like a crazy X-Wing thing and then lightsabers thrown all around and Rey always winning and all that type of stuff. It's heartless because they relied so much on a large budget to give us flash and no substance. A constrained budget will say, listen, we have to have these characters doing something that is relative to the story, that allows the audience to fall in love with them, and doesn't require $20 million special effects in that shot. And that's actually to a benefit on the side. It will challenge creatives, writers, directors, producers who, if they can't find heart in a scene, they would just hide it with a special effect or some sort of weird gimmick. In this case now, they don't have that opportunity, which means you're going to see a lot of filtering out of bad talent in order to maintain the integrity of a story so that it will actually sell at the end of the day. So that's one thing you have to realize, that Chapek might be an interesting byproduct of Chapek's position of wanting to slash, reduce contracts to a single year, slash budgets of films to keep them tight so that you can maximize your profit.
And then on the other end of it, you want to make things that people actually want to buy products of.
There's that as well, yeah. People will buy action figures of a character they fall in love with.
Well, and that's where I keep bringing up Baby Yoda. I know people, I've met so many people who have bought Baby Yoda shit, have Baby Yoda, this, that, and the other, and have never watched The Mandalorian.
What's kind of interesting about that is you have Baby Yoda, you have King Shark, you have Groot, all characters that say as little as possible, and people love them. Like, just think about it. That's a correlation.
Yeah, because they can't fuck up and say something stupid. Brett,
they're cool to look at.
Yeah. He sent in $10 from Australia. Thank you so much. It says 80s into the 90s till the slight indie revival was about the actors, directors to market a movie. Seems it's all about the producers now. What happened there as most aren't creative? What happened there as most aren't creative? Is it just ego? Well, I'm curious to hear what Script and Andre think about this, but you're not wrong in a way. The thing about the 80s into the 90s was that was more so started in the late 60s going into the early 70s. And that was when the Hollywood moguls were dying out and selling out all the studios. Basically they were bought up by beverage companies and all these other companies who really had no idea how to make movies, but they didn't know how to market and sell shit. So they would give a bunch of money to guys like Martin Scorsese and George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and be like, here, go make us a movie, kid. And then they go make a movie and then they bring it back and they knew how to market the shit out of it, right?
And like they didn't even give them that much money by comparison either.
Really, yeah, true. And to be honest, yeah, you're right. And the big movie that really kind of spawned all that, of course, was Easy Rider. Like that movie was made
Roger Corman, yeah,
and made a butt ton of money. And at that point they realized, oh, you can make a movie for very little and make a huge return on it. And then you saw movies, come out of that like Midnight Cowboy and
Midnight Cowboy.
God, what else am I thinking of? Like there was a bunch of
Apocalypse
like
Now,
the little indie, thing, and like even guys like Francis Ford Coppola ushered a lot of that in. And then again, you're right, like, and then it became like the thing in the late 80s. It kind of became more about sequelization and maximum profits, and that kind of took over.
Pushing some set pieces a bit more because things got cheaper. Yep.
Yeah, and then it changed again in the early 90s, because then that's when you had the new kids come in, and that was sadly Kevin Smith, Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, all those guys who kind of reinvigorated things again, and it kind of shook things up. But what we've had now is we haven't had that revolution again. So I don't know if the producers are still hanging on, clinging to the power, and those are the ones with the ideology. What do you guys think? Script, let's hear from you first.
Well, the ego is a massive issue within Hollywood, and all over, even out in Atlanta where they're doing their filming there. But yeah, the other part too is there is a formula with regards to like production and distribution that is pretty stable, and it seems to have lasted across many generations. And there's other people that are getting involved that try to keep gaming that formula more and pushing more. And like Robert Meyer Burnett said a few streams ago, that there was a time where they were able to say, yes, if we invest $100 million into the production of a movie, we are going to make more back than if we were to invest $50 million into the production of a movie. Like that was just how it looked on a spreadsheet. but we're getting to a newer kind of realm now with more accessibility to content and more people being able to create stuff on their own, where that old means of aggregating this information is not going to be necessarily true for this new generation that's going to emerge in the streaming and direct to consumer market. So yeah, like it's a very confusing time right now, because there's a lot of people who they're not exactly old, but they're not exactly young either, who are going to hold on to whatever model they can to solidify their position and maintain their status of living and importance within the industry. And there's others that are going to be coming up who are just going to be doing something for a fraction of the cost that, if well marketed, could basically challenge their positions. So it's going to come down to creativity, going to come down to reestablishing the business, the coordination and relationship between creatives and businesses, where they're symbiotic instead of parasitic, because that's what it is right now. The studios and the corporations are parasites off of the creatives, and they're exploiting them and dampening them and threatening them so that they just do what they're told, as opposed to bringing their certain flavor of things to stories as well. So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting 5 or 6 years for sure, as this business changes into this new direct to market medium.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. And then Michael Miller comes in with 35 South African rands and asks, does Chapek's approach get rid of the JJ approach, abandoning ship and letting the spawn F it up?
Well, that depends. Because here's like the thing, Chapek doesn't really have an approach to filmmaking or anything like that, and Chapek and JJ are both similar in that they're all about the merchandise. The difference, though, is that while JJ may have had the intention of selling merchandise, he was unsuccessful in doing it because no one wanted his crap. But on the face of it, the JJ way is actually something on paper that is very consistent with the Chapek way, because it's based on the merchandise. But what I think is that the merchandise departments around town are eventually wise to JJ. So if JJ were to come around like now, I think that the Chapek would absolutely give JJ a chance. But I think that by now there's been too many blunders behind him. He's done too many reboots and stuff like that, where you can point to lagging or even diminishing merchandise sales in the aftermath that don't hold up at all. So I think with that history, Chapek is someone that would be wary of JJ. But that's not going to change anything at Warner or anything like that anytime soon. And also, we can't bring it up on screen anymore, but Michael Miller brought up another super chat before. Then he said they gave JJ a $500 million contract for nothing. And yeah, that would be Warner. It's interesting. That's some of the things that's in the JJ contract that he has with Warner. AT&T have actively undermined. I mean, they rejected a series that JJ had developed for them, and JJ, of course, he has like this Black Superman film with Ta-Nehisi Coates writing, and then AT&T with HBO Max, they goes and undermined him, and they're making a Black Superman series with Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah. And
Right.
one thing that's actually I'd add to what you said, Andre, because it's very accurate, is that Chapek just wants, his end goal is to make something that merchandising can something that he can sell that would give them all the merchandising money that they would otherwise be leaving on the table. JJ had that same approach. However, he was also the manufacturer at the same time. He's not just looking at how do I find someone that makes something great that we can make merchandise on. He was in charge of that as well. But one thing that is interesting is JJ does know how to sell something, but he doesn't know how to make something. And that's the fact. It's like you need someone. Chapek is the guy who's like, maybe I don't know how to sell and maybe I don't know how to make, but I can at least interview and look at people who do know how to do each of those things and get them to work together and hopefully produce something that will fit. He's not taking the charge as intimately as J.J. Abrams did and failed at it. And that's something we have to sort of take into account.
Yeah, absolutely. And our little war party was just joined by Nina Infinity. How's it going?
Hey, not bad. How are you guys doing tonight?
Excellent, excellent.
Good.
All things considered, at least, given what's going on in the world and everything. But
I know. I
yeah.
was just watching the craziness go down. It's like, I don't know. Every day we wake up and it's something crazy going on again. And you're like, what?
It's like each new week is playing a game of can you top this with the previous
I know. It's like every day. It's like, hold my beer.
Yeah.
How are you guys today?
Yeah, well, good. Talking some Dune and some Chapek and everything like that. So, what's your take on since we're talking about Chapek, we're kind of like done with Dune right now. But how up are you on Bob Chapek's restructuring of Disney and what that may really be about? This is what we've covered in the last two videos.
Well, I was about to actually watch your video. I should have probably watched it before I came on, but that's my next thing that I'm gonna watch. I'm not really up to date on the craziness that is Disney at the moment. What did he do now? Did he fire someone else? What happened?
Well, hopefully he will fire many people as time goes by. Like Chapek just may be the hero that we need.
Oh.
So yeah. Well, I'm sure you can get into that much more in Toxic Femininity.
Yeah, that's gonna be happening tonight for sure. Yes.
Yeah. What else is on your radar?
What else is on my radar? What's going on? Well, what if we just did a crazy cool breakdown of the first episode with Script Doctor and Az from Heel versus Babyface last night? That was really fun. Have you watched that, Andre?
Episode of what?
The episode of What If.
I didn't even know it was out before everyone started like reviewing it stuff. Same with like Star Trek Lower Decks. I was like, wait, that's out? Oh yeah, okay, well fine.
Oh, I didn't know.
I told you
Lower Decks was out. I didn't know that.
Yeah. No, that Tom was the one who told me like, wait, that's out? Oh, okay, well fine. That's like yeah, whatever. I guess that What If would be out right now. So how was it? I obviously haven't seen it yet.
Ooh.
I honestly couldn't care less about it. I mean, I'd be all for a What If series in general if they could do it right. But based on the trailers, it doesn't look to me like they've done it right.
No, they haven't. It's a shit show, Andre. It's a shit show, and I mean, we kind of like went in and broke it down on my streams, like kind of like almost scene by scene. We a little bit of an EFAP style break, but it's just basically like it's just all identity politics. It's all there's really no what if. The biggest what if is what if Bob Chapek actually fucking reins everything in. What if Marvel stops doing identity politics, because that will be the best thing for their company, and they're just digging their heels in more and more. And apparently the next one is going to be about T'Challa. What if T'Challa was Star-Lord, right? Yeah. So that one, see, like everything
really? Is that what it is? So like the first one, that was like, what if Peggy was Captain Marvel or Captain Britain
Captain America, technically.
And the next one is what if that? Oh my god!
Yeah.
Like, so like, what if this was that?
They didn't even do Captain America though for the first one. They did Captain UK. Like the words Captain America was never even uttered in the episode. So they were like, something happens and Steve Rogers can't become Captain America. So Peggy, nobly volunteers to go in there. And then she comes out and she becomes Captain UK. But she calls herself Captain Carter and she promotes herself. So it's just like it's just all the and then they go on to do basically Captain America, but
with
like
Peggy Carter as
with
the
Peggy
lead.
Carter.
Yeah,
Yes.
basically they took the initial story of the movie and just tweaked it a little bit to accommodate a character swap. Which I think is going to be the formula for the rest of the What If series, as opposed to what the comics actually did, which is they would change either the world around them or change a certain situation to create something entirely unfamiliar as an adventure. So
Yeah, on that stream last night, the panel and also the chat came up with so many different what if scenarios that would be better than what's going on at Disney right now. And I think the best thing about What If is the Twitter threads where everyone's basically like, what if Marvel didn't suck? Or what if you guys were like, didn't have your heads up your asses? That's probably the best thing to come out of What If right now.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. That's not. Do we know what's in the other episodes?
Not yet. I don't know anyways.
I think there's like a swap with Black Panther and Killmonger of some type.
So that's all they're doing. That's like, what if this character was that character?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, notice they brought up something about, and we might have spin-off series of these as well.
We know Captain Marvel's going to be in it because I've seen her in like the trailers and stuff.
Also, it's going to be like, what if Captain Marvel was Black Widow? I mean, that kind of thing.
Maybe.
Or what if Captain Marvel was the Hulk?
I've seen Captain Marvel in like her own outfit, so I don't know if they're going to do that with her.
Yeah, the Black Widow one is the Killmonger swap.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Which
I was
is funny
just
because
joking.
I'm serious. Which is funny because that was right after, and then we also heard that rumor about like something about like they were trying to bring back Michael B. Jordan possibly in Black Panther 2 or some shit.
Oh my god! And the voice acting for the first episode was just god awful. I didn't even know that Bucky was Bucky. Like while I watched it, I found out during the stream that was Bucky because Jane was so mad and she was like, "I can't believe they did that to Bucky," and I was like, "I'm gonna be fully like I'm 100% with you." I didn't even realize that was Bucky, and Script was like, "Well, yeah, he totally phoned in like." How he was like doing the voice acting there because he like nobody cares, not even the actors. They don't care. Nobody cares about this.
Who's responsible for this show? Was it? Please don't tell me it was Kevin Feige that ordered. Well, of course it was. I guess
probably was.
I'm pretty sure it is Kevin Feige. Yeah.
Okay, so the good news is this is then another dent in his resume, or another black mark on him, or however you want to call it. There's starting to be many of those by now.
Yeah, it's a Brian Andrews. Well, so far it's that Brian Andrews and AC Bradley are the ones charged with the development of the show, but I'm pretty sure it was ordered by Kevin Feige because he is credited as like one of the main executive producers of this.
Did he approve that the take was going to be, what if this character was that character? Because that really sucks.
Yeah, it seems that way.
I mean, that's not how you do What If.
It says it's directed by Brian Andrews, but
that don't.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that Kevin Feige was involved, though.
I mean, the best
with Marvel directing, it's really just taking orders from Kevin Feige.
I was gonna say, Kevin Feige's basically like a showrunner over everything Marvel. So,
but the worst part about it was that, like, I mean, aside from everything else we just said, when you go and actually break down the animation, because you would think that they would have a really good, like, really, really well done animation, kind of like He-Man, like, like the show sucked, but at least the animation was like, top notch.
Isn't it like animation, kind of like in that Spider-Man movie, like that's the Spider-Verse thing? It looks like that in the trailers.
It's a little bit worse in my opinion.
Yeah, it's definitely computer animated, but it's computer animated to look like 2D animation.
Little bit worse or much worse?
In some shots, it's a little bit worse. In some shots, it's way, way worse. And that's what the crazy part about it is, that when we were breaking it down, like the panels don't match each other. So like you clearly have an art director that couldn't rein in his team and go in and be like, yo, this panel needs to be worked on more. This panel needs, you know what I'm saying? Because they're all just so different from one another. So like in one scene, you have Peggy's shot with like way broader shoulders and way broader arms. And then in the next shot, you have her with okay shoulders, but like an extremely small waist. And you're like, well, how does this work? Like her anatomy doesn't work in any of the shots. And they're all just so different from one another. it's very nitpicky stuff, but it's not good for Disney. Like, I mean, this is Disney Animation Studios, man. This is not good. Their standards have dropped like way low. Like, it's just not good.
Well, I think this was very much a rush to order for the Disney Plus platform.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can look at it, because again, like, the voice acting performances are very weird. Seems like they had like a specific type of genre take they were trying to emulate of like the 1940s serials and cartoons of that time. And I don't think they nailed it. I think they just had a casual understanding of what was being done at that point. They didn't quite capture what they were trying to represent there. So yeah, and Nina's right. We noticed like there are some points where Peggy looked actually rather curvaceous for like an instant of a shot, and then went completely masculine in the next one. It just and there's some parts where we think that they probably traced some things from the Captain America movie, and because they did kind of redo some of the scenes from that film in this half-hour bit.
Oh my God! Did you see that
the detail of the guy
that someone posted in our thread script that it's like literally matched shot for shot for like Wonder Woman? Here, I'll share my screen on this one because I thought that this was freaking insane. This one here. I'm not gonna share the audio just in case because we don't want to get claimed. But
not
this
if it
is
can be avoided.
This is it. So
All
this
right.
is here you have Wonder Woman, and then you have
Peggy
on the
Carter,
bottom you have Peggy and Carter. So here we go.
Oh wow.
yeah.
Yeah, there's little doubt where they
Alarming
got the
similarities,
inspiration
yeah.
from there.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and then so like they basically did that, and it's basically a mix of that and a mix of actual Captain America. So
And then Nicholas Horton points out here that episode 2 is a Star-Lord one, and yeah, it's
Yep, T'Challa is Star-Lord, yeah.
T'Challa is gonna be Star-Lord.
Which means his
Yeah.
father is Kurt Russell.
Yeah, is that what's gonna happen? Does that mean?
Well, I guess maybe they just took the wrong kid or something. They figured, hey, like one Earth child is as good as any other, so we'll take that one.
So are you saying the wrong kid died
Yeah, maybe.
too
Oh
soon?
my God! Oh no!
Hey, it was a Dewey Cox joke. All right. I love that movie unapologetically, and I don't give a shit.
You unapologetically love that movie?
Dewey Cox, you never seen that?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, it's hilarious.
It's a very
I believe it.
it's a Johnny Cash parody film.
Yeah, with the
John C. Reilly.
John C. Reilly, yeah. I'm doing pretty good for a 14-year-old who's married with 6 kids and a monkey.
What?
Fuck you! You always take her side.
That already sounds funny. That's when you could be funny, probably.
Michael Miller says, let's talk of the Trek apathy, and even hate watchers are over it, I think is what he's trying to say here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
it
that's
must be talking about like the lower decks that I didn't even know was on.
That's
until
literally
Why the fuck
me.
did they drop the first episode in the middle of fucking Star Trek convention? That is just makes zero sense to me.
Well, they didn't even drop it at the Star Trek convention.
That's
that
what I'm
reminds
saying.
me. Did anything cool come out of the Star Trek convention?
Nobody
other than
went.
people
No.
meeting up, or was any news of any kind whatsoever?
No, because they dumped it all at Comic-Con.
Well,
I didn't even remember anything at Comic-Con. I
They
was
dumped all
watching the
those
Salty
trailers.
Nerds guys there at their table and
Yeah,
didn't
me
get any
too.
information on developments of there. So
They dumped a bunch of trailers or whatever it was a few months ago at Comic-Con, or a month ago or whatever it was. Remember? Because that's when
No.
we got we
No.
got the Picard season 2 trailer. That's
Oh,
when we
yeah.
got the Lower Decks trailer. Yeah. So yeah, all that shit they did the same exact fucking thing the last time.
Well, the funny part is that I saw people that weren't even really in Star Trek. Like I saw like Shohre, I forget her last name.
Well, I heard a
but,
bunch of the stars actually canceled, so I don't even know if anybody was
yeah,
there.
Avasarala from The Expanse went, And I was like, she's not a Star Trek character. Like, she's from The Expanse. And like, she had a table, and I was like, what is this? And then
We just need
there was
people to show up.
yeah, and then there was like the whole place was a mess, because from what I saw from the Salty Nerd podcast guys, and like the pictures from like the whatever and other live streams that were happening there, let's just say the whole COVID thing really hurt them, because for example, like the
Yeah,
Salty
let's
Nerd
hide behind that excuse. is
yeah,
what I have to
well,
say
it
to
was
that,
it was
but yeah.
crazy because they kept getting harassed like over and over again. Like the one dude, the security dude, kept walking around being like, put your mask on, like every 5 seconds. And it's like, that's not what you want at a convention. Like, you just don't want to be harassed like every 5 seconds. So no wonder people didn't go even for that. Like, you know, even if people like Star Trek still, they'll be like, I don't want to get harassed every 5 seconds, so maybe I just won't go. That place was empty. Like, there was barely anybody there.
I mean, I think Gary said he was talking about it like yesterday or whatever, the day before. He said he went in. Yeah, it had to be yesterday because he went Saturday. He said,
Yeah, I saw him
said
on
it was
that.
like a bunch of 40-year-olds, and that was about it.
Yeah, there was like a handful. Like,
Yeah.
there's not
That's
not that many
troublesome,
people
because
there.
that means that the built-in audience, they're already gone.
Oh yeah, we knew
And
that.
and there's no one in their 20s or anything, so it's just like people our age.
Well,
yeah.
Look, I mean, we all kind of went, "What the fuck?" when we saw Kurtzman get his 150 million 6-year deal. But then, like I said, you compare that to fucking Trey and
South
Matt's
Park.
deal, and it really puts it into perspective. It's like,
really
okay, you've
does.
already killed it. Might as well let him finish it, I guess. I don't know. At this point, again, it's got to be like, I think Script, you brought this point up too, and I know we have as well, is where it's just that Kurtzman can get a lot out fast, I guess. Evidently, that's all they want. They want content. They don't give a shit about the quality. And once there's no incentive to make good quality shit, you get Kurtzmans. That's how they happen.
And that model's not going to last, because again, we're starting to see streaming services opt for ad supported options because they need that third party money. Manufacturers need to be able to tell people they're making new stuff. They do so through advertising, and the best way to reach people is through what they watch. And if streaming services are predicated on exclusivity without commercials, they can work for a decent amount, but people are going to be turning away because there's going to be no reason to watch the shows that they're being put out at such poor quality of content. It's like, okay, I watched it, it killed an hour, but I don't want to watch it again. Kind of
There's
feel
no
like I was ripped off.
rewatchability value at all. Just like with What If, there's like literally no rewatchability value. Like, you'll watch it and be
bringing
like,
you back.
terrible.
I mean, even stuff like we were talking about Stranger Things last night over on Jesse's channel after we did the script read, and it's like I had zero interest in coming back to it.
Oh God, I have zero interest in that too.
Like after the first season, even, and I'm like, everybody's always like making a big deal out of it, but I'm like,
no, man,
you're not making something that makes me want. Like Cobra Kai is the only show right now where I'm like, I can't wait. I'm counting the days down, kind of thing.
Yeah. Stranger Things should have been a limited series to season 1, and that's it. And then they decided they're gonna milk it, and they're gonna milk it forever until those kids are like old as shit and they can't be in it anymore. They're just gonna milk that. And then
why stop just to age the series with them?
Or that they're just gonna keep going, and then they're gonna have kids, and then it's just gonna be like a new Stranger Things over again, and then they'll do like
15 years. You can continue with the kids, like make it like an Emmerdale or something, or
what season are they on?
It's the series that never stop.
Well, what season are they on now? Because Netflix
notoriously. This is 4.
I was gonna say, wait till next season. It's gonna get canceled because Netflix does not like going past 5
No,
seasons.
I've heard. Oh, after next season, you're right. Yeah, because I've heard that they've already renewed it for season 5, and then season 4 hasn't even dropped. But
yeah, see, Netflix does it. It's either 3 to 5 seasons is the max what Netflix likes, because that's the drop off. People tend to drop off between the 3rd and 5th season of any show. Then they quit watching it. So that's why Netflix doesn't give a shit if a show has more than 5 seasons.
Also, just real quick, Yellow Flash is in the chat.
Hey, Yellow Flash.
Hey, and says they canceled Vic Mignogna if F them, they would have gotten a huge crowd just for him. And that's also true. Like, I think because Gary went and he was wearing like I stand with Vic shirt and everything like that. And I think that may be something else that contributed to the fact that nobody showed up.
Didn't help.
It didn't help. It did not help.
And I met Vic at the last one, and he seemed really nice. So Dash D said, what if Script Doctor was Jack the Ripper Vampire Slayer? Well, that's a plug for Mandy's book if I ever saw one.
Indeed, yeah.
Totally. Buy Mandy's book.
Buy Mandy's book.
Yeah, like
interesting
what? Buy
concept.
Mandy's book.
It's an interesting concept. What if Jack the Ripper was actually a vampire slayer and all those women he killed were vampires? Ooh, interesting take. Rob Altus coming in says CBS will make their own conventions. They absolutely don't understand fans.
What they will?
I don't think so. I mean, technically, the Star Trek Las Vegas they sponsored that.
Yeah, that wasn't. Yeah.
I mean, it's done through creative, but it's the official. So
yeah. No,
Yeah,
like
but-
CBS sends stuff there, and they negotiate with vendors and everything to do that. So it's technically kind of theirs as well. Like it's very. I remember when that thing used to be huge and packed, and you see like parents bringing their kids, and the kids loving Star Trek, and just don't get that anymore.
The only person that I saw like as an actor in Star Trek was Elam, like the guy that plays Garrick. He was there.
Oh, right.
Andrew Robinson. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Did
awesome.
Shatner even show up? Because
No.
from what that's what I heard. I was say a lot of people canceled. You know.
Yeah, like
And he was
that's
charging
the
up the ass
only
anyway.
person I saw that was a Trek character that people took pictures with.
Nah, I'm glad that I didn't spend.
And
any
he's
money.
really sweet, and I'm like so glad that he went. And obviously, he's like cares about Star Trek. That's why he went. But I mean, other than that, like nobody else went.
Culture Casino, our buddy says, Kadish said on Saturday night there was less than 10,000 people at Sci-Fi Con. It is hot trash. They know it's hot trash. Nerdroticon was awesome. Yeah, I saw a lot of the videos. I was crying into my pillow every night wishing I was there.
Me too, Tom.
Next time. Okay,
FOMO.
next time.
Yeah.
Next time, I promise, Midnight's Edge and with the entire extended crew is going to be there. I'm
Yes.
sure that everyone is coming.
I
And
think the next one's going to be in
associated
Florida.
with the
I don't wanna
perfect,
go to
yeah.
Florida.
Everyone from Midnight's Edge is going to be there.
I wanna
Lorena
go to
doesn't
Vegas.
even have far to go.
No, screw Vegas, Tom. At least Florida.
Tom, have you been to Florida?
No, it's
So
humid
give
and
Florida
it's
a
got
chance.
alligators. I don't want to go.
Oh,
Stay
gators
away
are
from
easy.
ponds.
How awesome would it be? Like you could go to a golf court and cuddle an alligator. How
No.
awesome is that? Where else can you do that?
No, thank
You
you.
can
I
eat
look
alligators
forward to like going playing golf and say, and I'll hope for an alligator at the golf court. And have you
Apparently,
seen those YouTube videos? They're so awesome.
apparently, Lorena makes awesome alligators, like or
I have a
crocodiles.
rule where I will not eat anything that could possibly eat me. It's bad.
But not
juju.
even for revenge.
I would.
No,
revenge.
that's
I
a
would
bad
eat you.
idea. Now maybe okay, if an alligator ate my kid, then maybe. But you're talking a big hypothetical here.
What if it ate your dog? Would you?
I'd
eat
even
it?
have to think about that one because it's like, well, maybe the dog did something and deserved it. I don't know. The alligator was hungry. It's,
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't necessarily want to eat an alligator, but I do want to see them. It's awesome. Like for instance, when me and my crew from Norway, when we were in Grand Canyon, we were told by the guide, be careful, like don't go too far off the camp. You might see rattlers. And that motivated us. So of course we went and we were looking for rattlers all over the place. And he warned us, if you're looking for trouble, you're going to find it. But
No,
we
I
didn't,
love
no matter
and
how much we
respect
how much we looked.
wildlife. The only reason I'm not a vegetarian is because meat is good. But I mean, I will not eat like shark. I won't eat anything that can eat me. And I don't eat
that's
rodents.
horrible. I mean,
Oh.
shark
That's my
eating
line.
plants.
I won't
no,
eat
I'm not-
rodents, and I won't eat
Dude.
anything that eats me.
Shark fin soup is fucking disgusting.
Yeah, that is horrendous.
It's
I mean,
gross.
that's a freaking crime against nature.
And then that nobody guy says, off topic, but Andre, it seems to me there is a lot of similarities between Old Norse, Viking, and Native American cultures. And am I way off? What do you think of the History Channel Vikings? History Channel's show Vikings.
I don't know that there are so many similarities between Old Norse Vikings and Native American cultures. You know what there are similarities between? There would be more similarities between the ancient Norse Vikings and the Samoans, the Polynesian people that go and travel from island to island. There are some similarities. With the Native Americans, not so much. The ones that in Nordic culture that would be the closest to the Native Americans would be the Sami people, sometimes called the Lap. They are the native population. They cross borders between Norway, Sweden, and Russia. So they belong to each country as much as every other. They would be the closest to the Native Americans. As for the History Channel series Vikings, I think it's fantastic. It's really, really cool. It is historically accurate in so much as it can be historically accurate, because there's many gaps in the record books of that particular era. And I look greatly forward to the sequel series, because they are making a sequel series to it, which picks up a few centuries later, when Leif Erikson went to America centuries before Columbus, to Vinland, as it was called at the time.
I've heard that show's supposed to be really good.
It
and
is really good. It's
like
amazing.
Stig Kenobi, who's another Norwegian, told me about that show, and then I started watching it, and I watched the first episode, and I was like so freaking bored.
It gets a hell of a lot better.
I gotta get past this first episode. Okay,
You got to get past the first few episodes, because the first is basically just setting up Ragnar Lothbrok as this.
Yeah, they were making a boat for like an hour.
That's basically basically suppressed by his local chieftain. But you just wait until he travels to England and he starts doing the, and this is history, like the raid of Lindisfarne. That's what's covered here. So this is actual history, and how he then becomes the Viking king.
Okay, don't spoil it for me, because I'm
just saying, give it a few episodes and you'll be hooked.
Okay, yeah, because the first episode was all just him making a boat with his son, and I was like, "What am I watching right now? I can't."
Give it time.
Give it time. Give it time.
I was expecting raids like the first episode.
The raids will be coming, and there will be plenty of them. So give it time.
Okay, I will. Okay.
Steven Otten sends in $2. Says, "Can't leave a message in the chat. What gives?"
What?
Yeah, something's going on with him. I don't see your messages besides this one, Steven. Sometimes YouTube can get wonky. Reset it, and if it doesn't work again, DM me, and we'll see what we can figure out on our end. We'll see if something happens.
Pop out the chat and then put it back in if you have that.
Yeah, if not, that might might want to try that as well.
Yeah, the last couple of weeks I've been getting disconnected from the chat.
Yeah.
YouTube has blacklisted me on Ryan Kinnell's channel. It's really funny, because every single time I go on Ryan Kinnell's channel, I get timed out in the chat, like immediately. I only say hi or something, like it's something milk toast, and they'll be like, "You've been timed out for 300 seconds," and I'm like,
yeah. Natasha says you're not showing up in the participants, so yeah, try either re-signing in or like what Script just said to do. So. And then if that don't work, DM me.
I see him in there. I see.
Now he's showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something is weird, and like it's same thing here in the studio. I mean, honestly, like we have to work so much extra for the super chats right now, because the studio ain't even working for the super chats. They promised a fix over the course of the week.
Yes,
but still, we have to,
by Thursday.
Yeah, thank you for finding that out.
So you can see him, Nina, but I can't on either one of these.
Are you on the live chat thing?
I'm on the live chat, and I can't see him in StreamYards either.
Oh, that's weird.
It is. I don't see him
at him, but
all.
I can't see him where he writes.
Yeah.
I'm having issues with the live chat as well.
Well, following the show, if you don't pop up here before the end of the show, I'll have Andre go in and double check if some may have accidentally blocked you, but I don't think he would.
That would shock me.
I'm
gonna go and check that right away.
No, it wouldn't be that, because he wouldn't be able to super chat if
that's a point. That's a good point.
Yeah, so
that's what I was thinking too. So something's on the connections, and it doesn't surprise me, because fucking YouTube is screwing everything.
We love YouTube. What are you talking about, Tom? YouTube's amazing.
Yeah. Let's not talk ill about this platform.
I'm talking about their constant need to upgrade shit like Windows.
Yes.
Leave it alone. Let it work. The only time YouTube's worked in the last year is when nobody was there to fuck with it. Remember?
We love you, YouTube.
Quit kissing its ass. It don't care.
But
wants
we
your
have
money.
we have a couple of more super chats to go through here. So, but I've lost track of where we are. So Tom, can you?
We're on Stephen Otten's right now. But let me make sure which ones
They
we've got.
talked. The last one was about the history of Vikings, and I
We
think
got that.
Hyperguyver is.
Yeah, but I
got
think
that one.
I think we missed a couple of before then. I think we
Okay.
missed at least one. Let's see here. Because I think we missed one from Dash D's. Dash D said for 10 Canadian dollars.
Yes.
I watched Field of Dreams yesterday.
Oh yeah, that one.
It was so pure and enjoyable. If you go back and watch those kinds of things and look at Suicide Squad, the difference is astounding in how you feel after it's over.
Well, Hollywood doesn't make a lot of movies like that anymore, and when they do, they're just for the Hallmark Channel and shit. Like
And
that's
even
the
on the
thing.
Hallmark Channel, the quality is never as close to a Field
No.
of Dreams.
Well, and a great example is William Shatner's newest movie. You haven't heard about it.
Oh, the
Nobody's
Love
really
Story
heard.
one. Yeah. I know
Yeah,
about that one.
it's decent. It's not great by any fucking stretch of the imagination, but you know what it is? It's a reunion with William Shatner and Christopher Lloyd.
Yep.
And it's actually got some pretty funny moments in it. And Shatner can carry a movie at what, 70? What is he, 70?
He's 90.
Or 90 something? Oh, Jesus Christ.
He's
that old?
94.
What?
No, he's 90. He's not 94 yet.
Oh, I thought he was 94.
I can't
No,
believe
he was
he's
born
that
in
old.
1930.
Wow.
Did you see his tweet about like what keeps him youthful? I died.
Sex?
No, William Shatner says eating troll blood, the blood of trolls in Twitter keeps him youthful.
Yeah, I know of a precedent that used to work pretty well for as well.
I think he was in his 70s, though. Seriously.
I think it's funny because I saw Henry Rollins at a spoken word show in London more than a decade ago. And there he spoke of his working with William Shatner for a song back when William Shatner did an album. So he spoke about, I can't get behind that. And then he was talking about what an awesome guy William Shatner is. And he said that he also knew that William Shatner, bless his heart, like he's almost 80. He doesn't have a lot long left on this earth. So he's just trying to do everything for as long as he can. Now we're here more than a decade later, and Shatner may survive us all.
Yeah,
I hope so. And
I
mean,
hope so.
He's
But
coming
again-
to Canada in a few weeks, so yeah, I'm gonna see if I can try and meet up with him.
Oh,
that's my
definitely,
point, though, is yeah,
please.
if you pitched a movie now, and I'm sure a script, you can clearly disagree with me if you don't think it's true, but I believe if you went and tried to pitch a movie like Field of Dreams now, you'd get rejected unless you went to some place like Chicken Soup for the Soul, which is the company that made Shatner's latest film, which is why I brought it up.
Yeah.
Because that's where those kind of movies wind up now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can see you on this side of things, Steven. Let me see if I can see you in the other chat.
Yep, I see him.
Okay,
I
we
love
see you
William
now.
Shatner because he's like literally the opposite of Mark Hamill. Like he's a complete he just gives no shits. Like it's so great. I love him.
Again,
Yeah.
like I can't recommend the movie to like saying like, oh, it's an 8 out of 10. It's a movie you can watch with your mom. It's just the basic premise is pretty cool. It's Shatner plays a guy who's obsessed with his car. He loses his license, so it's like he has like a midlife crisis, but he's, like I said, in his 70s, even though in the movie it is anyway, or whatever. But like, yeah, so and then he ends up meeting a girl. Christopher Lloyd's his best buddy. It's just kind of a little meet cute movie, basically. That's the best way to put it. It's got a great cast. I mean, it's not anything to brag about or anything like that. Maybe a 6 or 7 out of 10. It was enjoyable enough. I'm trying to remember the damn name of it. Senior Moment. That's the name of it. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check that out. I didn't even know this.
I got it for like $4.99 on Vudu in 4K.
Wow.
Yeah, it came out in March. I didn't even know he came out with a new movie.
I didn't
And
either.
then moving on with the
Yes.
super chats, we
have a
had
few
my
more.
countryman Paris Plain say for 100 Norwegian krona, Baby Yoda was launched to orbit in SpaceX Crew 1. Launch date 16th of November 2020 as 0G indicator. I did not know that. And Nicholas Horton said that What If Episode 2 is the Star-Lord one. And then we got Dash D's with the Script Doctor one. And then Rob Altus had the CBS convention one, Culture Casino, and then we were at Nobody Guy with the Viking stuff. Yeah. Oh, Hypergiver 2. Now we're up to speed here. I've known Vic for over a decade, and he is 100% a great guy. His love for Trek is genuine, and like us, want to see it return to its glory days. And Mecha J also sent $10 saying, on the Vic Mignogna topic, the Star Trek audiobook he did, These Are the Voyages, Star Trek, the original series, Volume 1, was just released on Audible and Amazon. You guys have to check it out. Okay, I don't know what that is, but I will check that out. Maybe that is some good Trek, which is something the world could surely need right now.
What's funny is that Vic has actually had, I don't know about now, but he had a really good relationship with CBS Studios, because after his Star Trek Continues, he got hired on to do voices for Star Trek Online and a couple of other things Star Trek related. So that's something quite unheard of at that point. So it's something to think about before everything else went kind of crazy. And this was just, I think, just before Discovery really came out is when he started getting those deals.
Well, all right. And then we have Guns Down in Hail, who said, I respect Yellow Flash, but I don't cry for Gundam. I have no idea what that means.
That's a reference.
Yeah, okay.
Robot fighting series. Very
it's
very
an
good.
anime called Gundam, and apparently he cried.
You got to keep up with
Watching
Yellow Flash's Saturday night shows to know and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, but they're on so late at my time.
I know.
It's also really understandable why he would cry, because those shows were good, and they actually touch the emotional heartstrings. Like, if you have a heart, you're gonna cry. And that's a sign of a great show. So there's no shame.
Indeed. And
is Yellow Flash even still here? He was here a little bit ago.
He was here. I don't know.
He bops in and out so quick. That's why it's so tough to get him on a show. He's so busy just doing stuff.
Yeah, well, you can't
He's like Eddie Murphy. I'm doing stuff. I'm over here. I'm here. Hit me. You want to know where I'm at? You'd be like, Axel, I won't answer.
Exactly. And then we have, if I can get back to the right screen here.
He's here.
Oh, there he is.
I love refrigerators.
Someone cutting onions in your area.
It was onions. Yeah, it was onions.
No, Yellow Flash. I have the same problem. I do not cry. My eyelids sweat, but I do not cry. So.
Yeah, exactly. Many men have that problem with the things we love. It's so you are far from alone, Yellow Flash. And then Diego Flores says, for 5 Peruvian souls, Andre, Florida all the way, so we can visit Universal. Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
I haven't been in Universal Orlando for, let's see, I don't even want to think about it. 1995 is a very long time, but I did love Universal LA. That was freaking awesome. So, yeah, I'd love to go to Universal Florida as well.
Universal Florida is even better now.
I say that's the only
They got the new
caveat.
Raptor.
I wouldn't mind going to Universal Studios and stuff. I've never been to anything like that. So
yeah,
you'll love it, Tom. It's
yeah.
great.
We'll
they don't have Jaws no more. What the fuck's the point?
I'm so glad I did get to do the Jaws thing, because that was there when I was there in 95.
But who gives a shit?
And it was amazing. I
did Backdraft too.
And I did the Back to the Future thing, but Conan was already gone by the time I was there.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, that does suck, but hey-oh.
Oh, speaking of Conan, that reminds me, we brought up possibly doing Oliver Stone's script for a script read.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. Oh, cool. That's I look forward to that one.
I think everybody's going to be fighting who's going to play Arnold. Not Conan, it's Arnold playing Conan.
So. No, of course it's Arnold. And then Michael Miller, this is one we can bring up on screen. He says, for 35 South African rands, CBS were dragged into the lawsuit script. Then they lost arbitration with Bad Robot. Things changed and we got stuck with 25% Trek and their full control. Yeah, that's what it seems like. So Trek is pretty much dead at this point. So
I'm not
hold
sure
on.
exactly which lawsuit there was, because I know the big lawsuit I know about was with the fan film that the Axonar.
Yeah.
Yeah, because before that, CBS had no real issues with that. It's the predication for that lawsuit was the fact that the money being funded did not appear to be actually going into the production ethically.
Right.
Yeah, no, they went and funded like the development of like this own like their own Mando tech that they're renting out now, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. They're basically
and
trying to fund a
studios
studio,
and
an
other
independent
things,
studio,
Yeah.
and
Oh, you mean the Axonar? Oh, yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. Yeah, of course.
Well, you can check out our interviews with like Robert Meyer Burnett and Bill Hunt, and of course even Alec Peters himself. And Bill, with Robert Meyer Burnett, even did a recent interview. I forget the gentleman's name who he did it with, but
Paul Jenkins.
Paul Jenkins. Yes,
yeah,
thank you.
he's got a documentary coming out on it.
There you go. So yeah, there's even that happening now too. So,
and even I think Tony Todd said something about that project because he was involved.
Tony Todd, really? Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, of course he's in it.
Well, I know he's in it. I'm just saying
he does not have good things to say about that production. Yeah.
Ouch. He's the candy man. I'd watch the fuck out.
Yeah.
He was one of the best parts of Revelation as well. I was like thinking, why isn't this guy Skeletor?
Right? No shit.
Oh, that'd be good.
Yeah, I know.
I would even take him in a live action movie as Skeletor. Hell yeah.
As the voice, hell yeah.
Dark fucking Skeletor.
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
modern day deep faking, you could get a great Skeletor looking face on him without makeup.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
And
speaking of
we
Skeletor,
also have,
you have a video coming up soon, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I'm working on a new video right now because Kevin Smith, he found a way to mess up Masters of the Universe some more by changing Skeletor's origin in the prequel comics. So yay, good times.
Wow.
That bumbling boob.
Morons!
I'm surrounded by morons.
Oh my God.
So yeah, look forward to that. That's going to be fun. So I'm in the middle of writing that, so I'll hopefully have that in a day or so. And then we have our good friend Mike the Mexican Iron Man, who was here earlier.
Hey,
and he says for
Mike.
$19.99, Tom, you're coming to South Carolina for vacay, and dang it, I'm driving you personally to Florida. You're going to love it. I will make you love it. Southern cheese grits with gator nuggets.
Yes.
Yum, yum. Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be party at Lorena's.
I look forward
to
it already.
Yeah,
I can't wait for the Florida meetup. That's going to be freaking awesome.
That's going to be cool. That's going to be real cool. Especially if you come, Andre. That's going to be amazing if you come there.
Yeah, well, of course. That is, of course, it has to be a time when it's possible to travel again. Because right now I couldn't go to Vegas because it's not physically freaking possible.
It's freaking awful.
Of course, if I was willing to suffer through like 2 weeks of quarantine both ways, then yeah, maybe. But I can't lose a month on a trip to Vegas. So the world has to be in a significantly better state before I can go to the US again. But when I can, we're gonna rock that party.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ram Bam 3000 says for £5, talking about Vikings, I'd love to see a movie of Felix Bengtsson's The Longships, or Röda Orm, as it's called in the original Swedish. He didn't write that, I just know it. But I don't trust Holy Weird not to screw it up. Actually, I believe there is a Longships movie adaptation already from way back in the day. So maybe check that out. Beyond that, yeah, I agree. This is not the time for any kind of like Viking adaptation beyond the one by the History Channel, which is good, and Norsemen, the Norwegian one, which is a parody. And I wish it was a serious thing, but it's not. It's a parody. And if the Swedes themselves were to make an adaptation of the Longships in this day and age, let's not give them ideas, is all I'm going to say. And Mexican Iron Man says, my last super chat appeared to disappear. Did you guys get it? And if it was the one about traveling to South Carolina and eating southern cheese grits with gator, if that's the one, if that was the last one, then yeah, we got it. But no thanks to this platform. And then we have Rob Altis, who says, Andre, Doomcock would love for you to pop in his Sunday show. Well, yeah, if I can make it with the time of the day, I'd love to. And then, yeah, we could bring that one up on screen. And then the next one is Culture Casino, who says, for $2, looking forward to Florida. Need to meet more peeps.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can always visit me in Cancun, Culture. Just saying.
Yeah. Very nice. And then we have Mecha J, who says, this audiobook is based on the book by Mark Cushman. It documents the creation of the Star Trek TV series and production of its 2 pilot films and the 28 episodes from its first season. I guess this has to be like the Vic Mignogna audiobook thing that he's referring to here.
I think so.
Yeah, well, that's cool. That sounds like a cool story. I'd love to see that as a movie even.
And Peter Hahn is telling lovely lies in the chat. Thank you so much.
And then we had Adam Wofford saying for $10, in Universal Century Mobile Gundam, the characters are written very good, and it tells the story from both sides, Earth versus the colonies. Also in other universes of Gundam, all the characters are awesome. Okay, cool, very cool. And with that, unless something else has come in that I missed, I think we're mostly caught up. Let's see. No, we are not. Sean the Movie Man says, Script Doctor, why do so many great shows like Dexter, The Walking Dead get so terrible in later seasons? Is it failure to plan? Yes, Script Doctor, to share. I'm excited about this.
Okay. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. In the case of Dexter, the original show running team left, and Showtime wanted to continue the series, so they brought in someone else who had a good pitch from their perspective, and unfortunately tanked it.
Because the script or that pitch from their perspective, I mean, their perspective must have been to be insane, because that was garbage.
It was basically going more interesting. And I think the pitch that they said was, well, what if Dexter doesn't kill as many people this season and it starts to become more human, and the dark passenger doesn't take over as much, which when you have 4 or 5 seasons of kind of a repetitious formula, that seems refreshing and interesting to go with. The execution was atrocious, of course. I also think it comes down to the fact that sometimes for studios and production companies that have a hit show on the air, one, they don't want it to end, and two, if the original creators do want it to end, they need something that is pitched to them that they could supplement that time slot with, and rarely does that end up always going well. And I think what ended up happening in Dexter, and especially The Walking Dead, because I think they're in like 11th season right now, is they've got an ingrained audience that keeps watching the show. It doesn't matter that diminishes a little bit, as long as they're able to still hold on to like their core base, they're happy. And if they don't get pitched an alternative that could bring in new audiences or bring that existing audience over to this additional show so that they can hold them longer, they're probably just going to keep running it out until the show does eventually fail. One of the best advices I ever received, and wasn't directly, but it was just through Succession, which is Jerry Seinfeld's stuff, which is when you figure out where your peak is, you have to end it right there.
You end it. And just to add on to that, like I see people in the chat saying like Game of Thrones. I think I disagree about Game of Thrones. I don't think it's suffering from the same thing here, because Game of Thrones was based on a book series that never ended. So they had to basically go in and write in for George R.R. Martin what the ending would be, instead of his ending. And
well, they got his notes though.
They did, and also they burned through the books too fast. Like
Yeah.
they should really
They
have
should have
just.
stretched it out
And
a little
by
bit.
the time, I would say, they would probably be a third into the second book right now if they actually explored everything
But I mean,
properly.
I just think that they would have been able to do it. It's more accurate to compare to Lost, in my opinion, where you really have no, like, you don't
Yeah.
have anywhere to go. You don't have a source material. So you're just kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna wing it. Cause that's literally what happened with them. They were like, okay, we have a great first season. We got a great response. And then we're just gonna wing it from here on. And they really didn't have an end game. And I think Alex Kurtzman came out in an interview and basically said as much, that there literally was no end game, and they were going episode by episode and paying attention to what the fans wanted and just trying to like basically write for the fans, which they ended up fucking up the ending anyway. So
Yeah, well, that's the other part too. That's actually really detrimental with social media, aside from the normal aspects. Greg Weisman, who does a couple of cartoon shows and whatnot, he has a big fan following. And when they were announcing one of the upcoming seasons to his cartoon show, fans were saying, "Oh, I hope you do this idea. I hope you do that idea," because they were publicly put on social media. Even if he came up with the idea beforehand, he can't do that because legally, on the corporate side of things, and also with the unions, if he were to do an episode that was also pitched to him through a Twitter or his Facebook or Instagram, there's that risk that the person who pitched it or suggested it will say that, "Oh, you stole my idea and I'm going to come after you for monetary reasons." And so what ended up happening, frustrating him, is that he planned out his season. All of his fans kind of figured out where he was going to go and pitch the same type of ideas. And he had to scrap that entire season, then tweet and Instagram and say, "Please do not tip me idea." What's that?
Wouldn't that be part of a public domain though? Like if
No,
it's shared publicly on social media? That's
no,
like fair
because
use, isn't it?
you would think that initially, but it ends up not being the case because technically social media is, even though it's considered not a publication, it's dated and time-stamped. And this idea is built off to another thing that actually happened with the Star Trek the Animated Series, where the writer of More Trouble there was a class tour at the studio at Fun Filmation, sorry. And the writer for that thing was there, and he was, talking to the students that came through. And one of the students there was telling him what to do with like another Tribble episode, and the writer was telling him, telling the kid politely to shut up because he's already written it, it's already in production. He doesn't want to hear anything of that nature. Mm-hmm. And then when the show aired the following year, that kid wrote a letter to CBS and Filmation and said, "This writer stole my idea," but he didn't, because it was already in production at that point. But that opened up the whole understanding that with writers, you can listen to the fans with regards to stuff that has already been produced. But when it comes to the potential of what it is, we are stuck in a position where we can't know that you've made an idea or whatnot, because if we had the same idea and we did it, and you were a person that maybe felt that you deserve credit for something that is just coincidental, that is a whole legal battle that the studios don't want to deal with. And so that's why you have to be very, very careful when you want to say, listen to fans. It's like, put out an idea, listen to the response to it. But if they offer suggestions, unfortunately, you can't do that, because, again, it's like they're going to say, well, you just took my idea and you're profiting off it, so why can't I? It's like, well, you can't copyright an idea. And second of all, if you really liked it, you should have gone through the normal channels to submit or sell.
And that's where I think like shows like Stranger Things are headed, by the way. Like this is just gonna suffer as time goes on, because you're literally not gonna have any more stories to tell. You've already basically blown through your idea in the first season, like your good idea in the first season anyway. So now you're just kind of like winging it and milking it, and this is gonna end up being like the really shitty ending. I promise you this.
Could be.
It's not gonna be great.
With that, though, we do have one more topic here, which Nina, I think, might be a very good fit for Toxic Femininity later tonight.
Okay.
It's actually Script that caught this, of course, paying close attention to it, because it ties in with the whole Bob Chapek ScarJo situation. Ooh. Because Discussing Film says that Emma Stone has reportedly received an eight-figure make-good payment for
Oh yeah, I
Cruella.
heard.
She will also reportedly receive an
You're showing your
additional
DMs.
eight-figure payment if Cruella 2 happens.
You're showing your DMs.
Yeah, we're
Andre.
seeing mixed
Am I?
Iron Man stuff.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, fine. It's nothing bad there. It's just like the
Nothing actually private, but yeah.
I just generally don't have any bad DMs, so yeah. But and also script. What's your comments on this? And I believe that her representation might be a factor in this as well. What's your take on all this script?
My take is that Bob Chapek is definitely playing some 4D chess here. It's kind of fascinating. So Scarlett Johansson is with Creative Arts Agency, which is one of the biggest agencies in town, and they're the ones that are kind of fronting this lawsuit against Disney at the moment. And Emma Stone is with William Morris Endeavor, and that's a completely different agency. And unlike CAA, it seems that the suggestions of Emma Stone contemplating a lawsuit only went as far as contemplation, because something happened behind the scenes where now not only does she get a Cruella 2, but she also landed a pretty lucrative 8-figure deal, which I don't have all the details of that yet, which I'm pretty sure will surface as the day develops. But it seems to me like the Chapek was able to negotiate or possibly even make a threat to Emma Stone's agent with regards to what he might do with CAA if that thing blows up. And I think this ended up being a very interesting strategic maneuver on his part to show that this is a man who's not to be trifled with, regardless of the fact that he comes from a completely different avenue of business.
I'm sorry. What's CAA again?
Creative Artists Agency.
Okay, thanks. That's interesting. I wonder if ScarJo is going to be getting a make good deal. I don't know about that.
I don't think she'll be getting a make good deal at all. On the contrary, the rumors are that the franchise, the next franchise that she was going to be getting at Disney, is done.
Is done? Yeah, I heard.
Yeah.
Whatever it was. Yeah,
I don't think they're going to do any make good at Scarlett Johansson. On the contrary, I would think that Bob Chapek would use her to make an example.
I agree, Andre, and that we talked about that on Toxic Femme when we were talking about the ScarJo thing, because we were saying that whatever, like, because this has been shots fired by her, right? So like, because she started the whole thing, and I think that basically at the time we were saying whatever she's got going on with Disney, if ever again, whether that's like voicing Pixar movies or whatever else, like maybe even possibly like video games for Black Widow or anything, that Disney's going to cut ties. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened, because they were like, stuff came down the pipeline saying like whatever deal she had with Disney was now basically off the table. And it makes sense. And that's why we were talking about how she's kind of like standing up for something and saying, fuck it. Like, whatever happens. And I'm going to take on Disney. So it's gutsy. It's gutsy what she did. But at the same time, like
I don't think she did it alone. I think her agent put her up to it.
Yeah, there's definitely some more players here. I think Scarlett Johansson is kind of just.
Do you think she's regretting it though?
She might have a play in it herself, but I think she's probably realizing that her name did not hold as much weight as she thought it did, and probably because of the same reasons why I look at it, which is she's a very talented actress, very bankable with regards to like the MCU, but all the other franchises she's taken a part in, like her, Ghost in the Shell, and other sci-fi and dramas, they don't return as much money as anything that she's participated in compared to Marvel.
She's kind of like the female version of The Rock.
To a degree, yeah, I would say that's fair. She can definitely hold her own. She has her talent. She has her skill. She's got many, many years of experience in the industry. But I think what ended up happening is Chapek looked at the numbers and said, you know what? We still we can just make as much money without her as we can with her. So
this would have been a totally different situation had they come out with Black Widow, instead of Captain Marvel or
for
like
sure.
right after Civil War, where she acted like her value would have gone, I mean, through the roof if that had been the case, if they had come out with Black Widow way earlier. I think this was a little bit of a miscalculation on her part as well. I can see her regretting her decision now.
Yeah, there's also
Honestly-
the other aspect to think of is that Disney can justifiably say, you know what, we can make another Scarlett Johansson in some capacity.
Mm.
And
Well,
they
this
They're
is
will,
what I
already
meant by
doing
her
it
waiting.
with like the Black Widow too. Like with what's her face again?
oh yeah,
the one set up in the
Or
Black
Pugh.
Widow movie.
Florence
Yeah.
Pugh, yeah.
Yeah,
And-
Florence Pugh, exactly.
And I think they're going to be, Lawrence Pugh for sure, but I think there's also, from what I understand, they're going to be doing a new, they're doing the new Black Panther series on Netflix, or not Netflix, sorry, Disney Plus. And I from what I understand, they are going to be sex swapping, like T'Challa. Well, they're going to be basically making it like a new, the Black Panther is going to be a woman, and it's not the same girl either. They're going to bring in a new one. So if they bring in a new one, that's a new, again, all new star power female that they're trying to make like brand new, that no one's heard of. That's going to be successful, isn't it? I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be the same social phenomenon that the Black Panther movie was. Just you wait and see. and in case it wasn't clear, that was sarcasm.
You can never tell with you, Andre, because you always have like the same voice.
Yeah, which is why sometimes have to add. I'm being sarcastic now, just so
For
no
the
one
record.
I have
any
that
doubt
problem,
about
and I'm
it.
not even Norwegian. It's just because everything I say sounds sarcastic. So
That's true, Tom.
Well, in this day and age, I mean, just turn the news on and everything seems sarcastic. It's like, yeah, I'm not even looking
Sarcasm
into
delivering satire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, as for Scarlett Johansson, I do believe she's probably regretting participating in this move, because you saw like this whole, when this first was dropped in the press release, they deliberately put out some names. Emma Stone might be next and stuff like that. And who did Bob Chapek go to first to make sure that didn't happen? And then they also made public that, we already sorted out everything with Jungle Cruise. That's sending a really powerful signal,
Well,
and
yeah.
that leaves Scarlett Johansson isolated
All
and
alone.
alone.
Well, that's what I was saying
gonna
is-
come to her defense.
I think she jumped the gun. Even if I feel like she may have some legs to stand on, she should have waited a little bit longer to do this, right? Like I feel like there was a time and a place for this, and they didn't get back to her necessarily yet, but that's because the dust hasn't settled on this movie yet either, right? Like,
Again, but I don't think that they thought that far. I think they were only thinking,
you're
okay,
right.
you know why they jumped the gun? Because of the investor call. They wanted to get that black
I think
press
you're right.
against Bob Chapek before the investor call, which was last week. They couldn't wait any longer. They wanted to give it a week to fester and everything like that. And unfortunately, that was 1 week for
Emma
Bob
Stone-
Chapek to put the fire out.
Emma Stone took the Kevin Smith / Peter Jackson deal, basically. And that was sue him, but then you settle out of court and you get a better deal on the second film.
A suit wasn't even launched on her end. She basically just talked about it. And
I
then
know, and
they
that's
just
what I'm
jumped
saying.
in.
Yeah.
And here's the other part too. So if this goes south, and it most likely will for Scarlett Johansson, her best course of action is to sign with another agency and basically throw CAA under a bus and basically say they manipulated me. They told me this and this.
I would fire everybody. Like if I was ScarJo right now,
'cause you'll probably see in, like, the
people who did
trades.
especially the people who did my contract, like to begin with. Like, man, I would be freaking firing everyone because they screwed her over, man. Like on that, like they needed like amendments or whatever was the case. They needed something to come out and like literally like spell it out word for word what she wanted in the contract when they started the streaming service, when it came to Disney Plus and everything like that. I mean, forget the coof, right? Like just the idea that you have a streaming service and that your movie is going to go on that streaming service, and they didn't have any, addendums or whatever the hell the word is,
Stipulations, yeah.
stipulations or whatever in her contract. Like, dude, nah, like, that's how Hollywood works. Hollywood's all about contracts, and if you have a shitty contract, you're gonna get screwed. And the fact,
well, yeah, it's all contract players. There's no real infrastructure with regards to like job security overall. But this is what will happen most likely, is that you'll see in the trays that big headlines: Scarlett Johansson leaves CAA for new agency, maybe Paradigm or UTA or WME or any of those other ones. And you're just going to get a big press release, and they're probably going to subtly do digs at Brian Lord, which could look bad for him. And this is all speculation, mind you. It all depends on what ends up happening on the next step with this lawsuit between Scarlett Johansson and Disney. So, it's going to be very, very interesting. I would say 6 months at least on this case, unless it gets quashed relatively quick behind the scenes. So it's going to be quite interesting to see what will happen next. So I would pay very close attention to what Scarlett Johansson is doing as things develop, because that's going to let you know the standing of the agencies and the standing of Disney within the town of this situation.
I was just looking up the articles, like just putting out of curiosity, ScarJo and Google, and the first one of the first articles that came up was called "What if Kevin Feige left Marvel over the reported drama at Disney?" And I'm like, oh my god, even like the media is like jumping down this, like the what if. And
what we're kind of seeing right now is how the Emperor doesn't really have all of their clothes, especially when it comes to Kevin Feige. I mean, he took a lot of credit for the stuff that was done by a really, really competent team for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that stood at the top of that tower, which I think I understand why he would do that. That's very much what a producer does, habit-wise.
Mm-hmm.
But it ends up now putting a target on his back, to the point where anyone else on his team that just decides, you know what, Feige took all the credit for the stuff that I did, and maybe that's true, maybe it isn't, but it would give enough of justification for Bob Chapek or anyone else on that board to say, you know what, I think Feige's contract is up, and we can knock him out and no longer make him head of everything Marvel, and we'll just get someone else in there who's been there from the start, who can get us back on track, since Feige kind of drank the Kool-Aid of the crazy.
Yeah,
well,
indeed.
Again, I would never take away from Kevin Feige and what he accomplished with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But like with Kathleen Kennedy, you can be this great whatever producer in her case, and still not, still lose sight of what, put you there in the first place, or lose sight of what makes these IPs desirable, or however you want to put it. And again, even if it's more so just like, not so much that Chapek sees that Feige drank the Kool-Aid. It could be as simple as like, motherfucker costs too much money.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, it cost us too much. He's been here for 20
Cost
years.
us too much and no longer earning what he did.
Well, it made
no longer pulling his weight.
Exactly.
24 movies and only 23 billion bucks in returns. Like, well, that's kind of a loss, because it should be an average $1 billion movie, and they don't have that aggregate anymore.
Yeah, victim of his own success.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that as a legacy he's not deserved of some sort of whatever, but like at this point, like, I mean, if he's, let's say for instance, Chapek goes, look, this shit ain't working right. What do? Either we gotta change things up or whatever. And if Feige's resistant to anything, which it seems like if Feige is a part of this whole coup, or however you want to put it, behind the scenes, that's not going to bode well on the other end. No, it doesn't matter who you are.
It doesn't matter what you've done. Forward to seeing the fallout of this. And we're going to follow that in detail. But right now, Knight of Snoke has a question. Yes, Andre, it says Dune, on IMDb in the stunt credits that Stellan Skarsgård has a stunt double. I guess he means for Dune. Might we expect this guy to kick some ass, or is he just going to sit on his ass like Jabba the Hutt? I would expect that the stunt guy is probably the one who's going to be whizzing around in the air on cables.
For the
But-
suspensors, yeah, most
yeah,
likely.
that would be my guess. As simple as that. And then we got a super chat from Troy Pacelli, who says, I said before that the type of suit ScarJo brought had to happen eventually, and it may still affect contracts in the future, but so ham-fistedly executed. Yes, indeed, because normally this wouldn't be a
JPEG
lawsuit.
made a note of that.
Yeah, this is something that would be sorted out behind the scenes without any of us ever knowing. This was about something else entirely, as we've covered in the last 2 editorials put out.
Oh, and I know this is why JPEG brought up long-term contracts right here. This is one of the main reasons between this and the whole thing with like people like Feige and stuff, because when you get into them, they cost you a lot of money. And when you're sitting here guaranteeing people X amount of money and stuff like that, I see where JPEG's coming from. It's more like, no, we'll do a 1 or 2 picture deal, see how it goes from there.
Can I just ask though, like, nobody was asking for a Cruella 1. Now there's a Cruella 2.
It's sacrificial.
What the fuck?
It's all about
like,
brand.
Yeah, but what is it even going to be about? Like her killing puppies now?
Doesn't
like this
matter.
This is
doesn't
gonna be
matter,
ridiculous, and it's clearly like a revenge. Like it's like not a revenge movie, but what is it called? Like a spite movie. Like they're doing it to spite ScarJo. You can tell. Like it's not even like
it's
we have an idea
to buy Emma's cooperation and to spite ScarJo and Story. Who cares? I mean, that's a movie they already wrote off for the purpose of this.
It was when like Kevin Smith went after the Weinsteins for his profits from Clerks, and they settled on a deal that he got. I don't know, I can't remember how much it was up front, but then he got a sweetheart deal for Clerks 2 is what happened. Same thing here.
And the other part too is that this lawsuit will force studios to start and agencies to start questioning and reevaluating the market for streaming, because streaming itself, when it was introduced, was considered a second window release. So you have your theatrical and then you got your streaming. And now that it's also potentially going to be aligned with a first window release, that changes the game completely. So hopefully that will do some sort of benefit with regards to talent on the actor side of things. And then at the same time, producers and writers are able to renegotiate as well so that they can make a stable living again with this new platform, because that's what the advantage of TV had, is that you'd work on a show for a year, you get paid for based on that entire year, and then you get royalties on top of that as the show would be sold on distribution and to other markets, and also with ad revenue on their networks that they'll be re-aired upon. That's not always going to be the case with streaming, because again, it's a direct to consumer. There's no commercial ads. It's subscription based. How do you aggregate that properly to distribute that the royalties in a trackable manner? So yeah, that's all going to have to be rethought of as a result of this escalation of the conversation.
Yeah. And then we got a super chat from the last millennial, who says, nice to see you, Miss Infinity War. Yeah, I agree completely. It's very nice to have you on the morning show. You need to wake up earlier so we can have you more often.
I was hoping Mandy would make her way on here this morning, but I think we kept
she
her up too
also
late
needs to wake up earlier.
Well, that's our fault.
She's got kids.
Well, not just that. We kept her up pretty late last night. We did a great script reading last night. Again, if you guys haven't checked those out, I recommend them. They're over on Jesse Miller of the Crow's Nest channel right now. We've done 3 of them, and they've been a lot of fun. Last night we did the unproduced version of Back to the Future 2 before they decided to do Back to the Future 2 and 3, and it's a much different script. So, but it was a lot of fun.
And also, if you go on over to Mandy Summers' channel, last night she did a stream with Kamran Pasha and myself. So be sure to check that out.
Oh, I didn't know you were there too.
No, I was there.
Oh, that's right. I came in late. That's right.
Yeah, you came in like just.
Well, that's because you had me working on a fucking video.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the video we're talking about right now. So time well spent.
I got 2 hours of sleep somewhere in between there. That's all I know.
Yeah, that's all you need.
The world of Conan.
Yeah, but I don't think we were finished with the previous one. There was more there. The last millennial, going back to that one, said, question, would you rather make a Star Wars flick under Darth Kennedy or a DC flick under delusional Warner Brothers?
Well, we already got both, so.
Yeah, Nina Infinity, let's hear with you. Which one of those two would you prefer?
DC, because leave Star Wars alone. I don't like just leave them alone. Like I'm just stop it. Stop killing Star Wars. So yeah, DC has more IP that they can, it's expendable.
I'm with Nina on that one. I think with DC, you have a better chance of at least possibly making a good movie.
Yeah.
Under Darth Kennedy, you'll have way too much control at this point.
Yeah. Script. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I mean, again, with Warner Brothers, the movies are far more closer to a hit or miss than with Kathleen Kennedy's been completely misses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to see the same type of numbers financially with what we saw the sequel trilogy with anything Warner Brothers and DC related for a while. But yeah, they at least keep a little bit more of an arm's reach away from some of the other ideology comparatively.
Exactly. I also think that that as long as you are able to keep the budget low enough, you'll be left alone, and you can make a good movie under DC if you're just a right filmmaker paired with the right property.
Yep.
Whereas under Kathleen Kennedy's Star Wars, there's almost no chance, because she's going to get involved and demand some creative changes there, unless you are Jon Favreau, in which case you have to hide what you're doing, which should sell everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then World of Conan, I do love that username, says for €5. Top Dune YouTuber said the Johnny backlash is racist and sexist, making noise, and conflated it with kinds and whole lot of other stuff, people worried trashing fans. Yeah, I would say that's an unwise approach to take. I don't know. I think I can imagine which YouTuber you are referring to.
They can't be Nerd Cookies. Is it Nerd
No.
Cookies?
No, it's not Nerd Cookies. We actually had her on earlier today.
I know. I saw she was on earlier.
And no, that this would not have been her. Now, again, I would just say that I wish that even those that are very passionate about horrible things like racism and sexism would be more understanding of the fact that fans of pretty much any property are hurt and gun shy right now, because there's been so many things. And I would say, instead of lashing out and trashing the fans for not for taking the worst possible interpretation, instead try to see, okay, you understand why people react the way that they do, but consider Gina Carano in Star Wars. I mean, it was the same thing there. Many jumped to the gun that was woke when she was first announced, and it was very clear that she wasn't. But people are going to jump to the gun when they're gun shy. And that's, you just have to understand that. It's like the human response.
Yeah, everybody's traumatized now. We're all like, we're all on edge. We're all like, no, like, immediately when you said, like, when in the last super chat, when they were asking about, Kathleen Kennedy and Star Wars, like, I literally had like flashbacks of being in the theater crying over how, Yoda is no longer the Yoda that I loved, and how Luke is destroyed. Like, it's like you live these like, we all have PTSD now, man. It's not
yeah, exactly.
I'm just sorry for all the people that went to the theater to see that. As soon as I saw JJ was involved, I'm like, no, I'm not going to the theaters for Star Wars.
Oh my God. Script, you have no idea the shit that I went through in that theater. Like, and we were in LA. My husband had just flew in that night and to come to this movie. And then we go to the movie, and he wanted to walk out. And I was like, no, it's okay. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. I still remember it. And the guy next to us was like swearing. It was so crazy. And we all walked out like shell shocked. It was so crazy.
Oh, interesting. If this has actually come across the transom, because I heard a rumor about they were trying to sell it to Netflix.
Oh, I wonder if that went through. That's good for Sony.
Yeah, Sony are in a good position right now where they can pick and choose who to sell to. I mean, this is changing landscape, and even if you don't have your own streaming service, that actually leaves you in a position where if you get the right deals, you reap all the benefits and none of the risk.
And Adam Sandler
So,
isn't in
yeah.
this one, so they might not have spent a fortune on it.
That is also true.
Yeah. Indeed.
So I'm sure
And
his
with
paycheck
that-
alone was a big part of the budget. But yes, with that, let's
Yeah, with that, we are actually completely caught up on super chats and everything like that. So, with that, I would like to thank Nerd Cookies who joined us earlier. If you're still here, then it was
Yay.
great to have you. And I would like to say thank you to Nina Infinity for
Of
joining us as
course.
well.
I'm so happy.
Brilliant
be
to have you here.
Thank you.
And of course, also Mike, who had to leave earlier, and Script Doctor. It's been great to have you here today. And Brian Barth is wondering what's going on with Pirate
The
Guy.
quick
Well, not a
version-
whole lot. Nothing we didn't already know.
Well, the quick version is he's actually speaking out, saying he's being blacklisted, basically. He's accusing MGM of burying his latest film. He should also accuse, I can't remember who it was who did his last film, too, of burying it, because they did. The one about the murder of Biggie Smalls. And other than that, he got a little bit of a victory in court recently where they have to reveal where the money went.
In that settlement, yeah.
That settlement. So,
Follow the money, man. That's how they got the other guy.
So I mean, he's speaking out for himself. Hopefully, some other voices get behind his, and that could be a good thing for him. So yeah, with that, Andre, let's.
With that, I would like to say thank you for everyone that's joined us today. Be sure to smash that like, help share the stream.
Ooh, can I say something?
Yeah, go for it,
please.
Join us again tonight
Oh,
on
that's
Midnight
right.
Edge for
Yes.
Toxic Femininity. It's Monday,
I
so
knew I was
yay.
forgetting something. Yes,
Yeah.
come check back later for Toxic Femininity featuring Nina, Mandy, and Larena. So that's going to be awesome as always.
Mm-hmm. So thank you guys. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And happy
Aw.
birthday to Natasha tomorrow.
Happy birthday, Natasha. We're early birthday.
Early
happy
birthday.
Oh,
today.
yes. Happy birthday tomorrow. And also check back tomorrow, Midnight's Edge Espanol,
Yep.
which tomorrow will be hosted by myself and Mexican Iron Man. So there might be slightly less Spanish than usual, but do check it out anyway. So that should be
She's
good.
getting some birthday wishes in the chat already. So
Yeah.
with that, let's go to Koalas in the Rain.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given. Koalas in the rain.